say that life's too short to be holding this tight. So why am I walking light? And in this world of light and color, I'm not afraid of the night when this future's so bright. Yeah, I got all these friends and we're like, it's not the end. Whoa, this new world is ours. This new world is ours. And all these friends and we're like, it's not the end. Whoa, this new world is ours. This new world is ours. This new world is ours. They say the life's too short, and I can feel in my bones the horizon is close now, now, now. And the world's been changing lately, but after the storm we come out strong now, now. Yeah, I got all these friends and we're like, it's not the end. Whoa, this new world is ours. This new world is ours. And all these friends and we're like, it's not the end. Whoa, this new world is ours. This new world is ours. This new world is ours. And I got all these friends and we're like, it's not the end. Oh, this new world is ours. This new world is ours. And all these friends and we're like, it's not the end. Oh, this new world is ours. This new world is ours.
Pull me close and you say you'll never run away. Think that love is a game and that we've gone insane. But what we have is no one spends a lifetime Pull me close and you say you'll never run away. You think that love is a game and that we've gone insane. But what we have is what one spends a lifetime searching for. Just with you I feel amazing, never felt before. But would I be so ashamed from what we're fighting for? I'm standing right at the gate, walking your stairway to heaven. Baby, I'm in love and I can't get enough. I'm yours truly, 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 baby, truly. Baby, I'm in love. Can you feel the rush? I'm yours truly, 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 baby, truly.
Welcome to your new sanctuary. Run for your fucking life.
my nemesis. Warning. You're my nemesis. Warning. You're my nemesis. 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 Nemesis.
Never alive with the city's pulse.
Well, happy Friday, Smite fans, and more importantly, happy SPL debut day. Season 8 SPL kicks off later on today, and I think I speak for everybody here when I say we are beyond excited to bring you that opening day. But first, we've got to do some SCC work. Mifflin here joining me to break down the Winter Dogs up against Sturdy Artisans. Miff, I mean, we've seen a lot of great SCC play. I think for those fans who are tuning in for the SPL later on today, this is going to be a really good display of what we could see, because in particular the Sturdy Artisans are a team that I think has a chance to set metas across multiple regions. They've been that good here in the North American so far.
Yeah, they are certainly good, but the Sturdy Artisans do have a weird streak as well. I mean, you can talk about the standard talent inside of Stewart, Ionic, Pagon, who are generally playing the meta and generally playing it at some of the highest level that we've seen throughout the year. But then you get to the junglers, Sino, and then sometimes the solar laner, Relentless One, and we're talking about E-Set Jungle. We're talking about auto-attack Guan Yu with crit. They're willing to go a little bit weird, so maybe hedge your expectations a little bit.
Yeah, okay, maybe meta setting was a little bit ambitious from me. But I'm just looking for some more E-Set Jungle, baby. Sino's looked so good on it that I think that we could see it from other players and other teams, because maybe it's just Sino. All right, it's probably just Sino. I mean, I think that this team, I mean, when you're looking at the NASCC, everyone came into this season talking about Baskin's team as per usual, but they've gotten off to a horrendous start. They are now sitting at 0-3 after yesterday's games. This Sturdy Artisans team, for those who have watched the SCC all of last year and beyond, should know that Sino-led teams usually do really, really well, and that includes at the SPL level. It's extra good at this level.
Yeah, I have very high expectations of the Sturdy Artisans consistently, and so far they've lived up to it. They're pretty dominant right now, to say the least, in the NASCC. And as you said, usually at the spearhead, Sino going to be the one initiating the fights, even when he is playing those weird picks like E-Set Jungle. And if you take a peek across the entire team, yeah, Pagon's playing Tsukiyomi mid in this replay. These guys are strange, super hard to prepare for them.
Really, really difficult to know exactly what they're going to do week to week. And as you said, it's not just where they have talent in the jungle. It's Pagon, highly touted, probably the most anticipated SPL call-up we're going to have this year after layers having gone up from the NA side, and Julio and Johnny on the EU side of things. I think that Relentless One and Pagon are going to be the two names that everyone's talking about coming in to the rest of this season and beyond as potential SPL stand-ups, because they've got a lot of talent, man. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that this Sturdy Artisans team can compete with just about anybody, and that makes the Winter Dogs' job pretty difficult here today, because this Winter Dogs squad, even though we're talking about how weird this Sturdy Artisans team is, Winter Dogs have a little bit of a weird streak in them as well.
They do. Winter Dogs headed up by veteran Andenster out of the jungle. Then you got flanking him, you got guys like Yuji, Gamma, Crimson, and Aquarius, all guys who played at that SCC level for an incredibly long time, and some people that got some console world championships under their belt as well. But they do have a little bit of a weird streak themselves, especially out of the mid lane recently around Crimson. This guy's willing to play just about anything.
Yeah, Crim, definitely someone that you should be familiar with if you watched SCL. He had a storied career on that league, and now coming in, I think that turning some heads in the NASCC at the exact same time. He's been a lot of fun to watch. This Winter Dogs team, last year, it was all early game all the time. Gamma, I don't know if he played a single Guardian basically all year. Maybe Ymir as the only option, because that guns it down purple buff really, really well. Has their strategy remained similar so far here at Mifflin coming into this year?
It's remained similar for the first 4 or so minutes. They'll definitely be trying to play aggressively, usually around Andenster, who's been playing gods like Tsukiyomi and Thanatos to really hedge the bets in their favor towards the early game. But outside of that, I'd say that the Winter Dogs have done a much better job in Season 8 of really keeping their heads in this game. I mean, take a peek at the clock, 35 minutes. You wouldn't see a Winter Dogs game go over 25 back in Season 7.
That's true. They were winning or losing in 25 minutes flat. It did not matter. It was just going to be done by that period in time. So a little bit of maturation on the side of Winter Dogs, trying to go a little bit deeper in these games. And to be fair, they were winning the majority of those pre-25-minute games last year. Their aggression really caught a lot of teams off guard. Let's see what Sturdy Artisans have in store for them for game number 1. Picks and bans ready to go to kick us off here on this wonderful Friday. It's going to be Winter Dogs in that first pick position. And Miff, we saw Europe in 2 out of the 3 sets yesterday. Yamoja got through in a lot of different games, both in Europe and North America. I don't know how long that trend is going to continue, though. The games where Yamoja did get played, she looked pretty good.
Yeah, they were also kind of letting Guan Yu go by the wayside as well. But, Agar, I got to talk about it, man. Winter Dogs throwing some respect over towards the Artisans. The E-set ban in the very first slot. Seems like Sino made a pretty big impression last week.
Yeah, how could he not, man? I mean, when he plays it, both games, if I remember correctly, and they go 2-0, look really good doing it. I think I can respect why they want to take that away. Looks like it's going to be the Guan Yu ban on the other side, paired with that Apollo, which has really risen above the likes of Heimdall, Danzaburo, the other gods that you would expect to kind of be there in that ADC role. It seems like Apollo is kind of the go-to right now. And if Apollo's banned, I'm anticipating some Chernobog. We saw a lot of him yesterday. It seems like these ADC players really valuing those global ultimates right now.
Tiamat getting that last ban slot over by the Artisans does leave a couple of gods up and available. As you already highlighted, the Yamoja that got through a couple times last week, or yesterday rather, in the European SCC, is still available here. Winter Dogs going ahead and picking up the Yanis in the first slot. However, that's very interesting, especially considering, as you already said, best hunters off the table. You really do want to get that next best in slot almost immediately. Chernobog generally has been that at the SCC level. Instead, though, Athena getting locked in on the other side.
Yeah, this was the pick that I was surprised got through. When we saw Athena yesterday, I think she went undefeated, and I think that every single game was an absolute stomp in her favor. She just brings so much versatility to a draft. You don't know where she's going. She can play 3 different roles very effectively. And then she just seems to win no matter where she goes. I'm surprised to see Winter Dogs go with that Giannis first pick. It's a signature pick for Krim. He's very, very strong on this god, but it's Athena, man. I don't know. I feel like she is just a head above most other gods right now.
Yeah, that global presence, the ability to be a jungler, a soul laner, or a support, that versatility, and keeping the enemy team guessing as well, is going to really affect the Winter Dogs bans if the Artisans don't really shine a light on where this Athena's going in this third pick slot. Heimdall and Ymir are going to get locked in by the Winter Dogs. Again, Chernobog left by the wayside. That global presence seems to be a little bit undervalued over here in the NA side. I really like, in general, the 3v3 core that both squads have so far, with Sun Wukong running out the top 3 for the Artisans. But I think I immediately have to give a slight edge to the Artisans, due in large part to that Athena lock, man. That god is so dominant right now.
You know, with the Wukong lock-in, it's looking more likely that it goes to Ionic. I mean, we know that Sino's willing to play just about anything in that jungle role, so certainly can't rule it out. But Ionic, being a staple of the support old guard, you know he's got this in the god pool, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that head over to him. A couple warriors taken away here by the sturdy Artisans. Achilles and Tyr taken away from the Winter Dogs, Aquarius, and now Winter Dogs looking at the mid lane. Scylla, a great ban whenever you've got something like an Athena on the other side, just free setup. Little surprised to see it actually go by, but Pagon's god pool is vast, to say the least, and I think that we could be seeing something a little bit different from him. Merlin is not what I was expecting, though, Miff. I mean, Merlin, a god that has his strengths still, but they seem fewer and further between than they used to be. Only 1 pick so far here in the SCC so far.
Merlin really struggles around these late-game team fights where you need to utilize that AoE damage, but I think that the Artisans have a draft that should be able to alleviate some of Merlin's weaknesses. Confound into a Tiger Stun when Merlin's in Fire Stance. I don't care who they're using it on, they should die. Ymir or Kakon, even in the late game. They can also utilize Merlin's early game objective burn to pull ahead through Gold Furies and Fire Giants. I think that really it could work out here, especially considering the Winter Dogs themselves also have a pretty unorthodox mage.
Yeah, they do in that Giannis, and now an unorthodox jungler, at least in terms of how often we've seen her. Pele locked in here for Enenster, a god that we just rarely see, and what a treat we are going to get today, Mifflin. What better way to kick off the SPL debut day than a jungle game from the master himself in Sino. This is looking like chalk jungle all the way to me, and let me tell you, this is a pick that Sino has preached to me for a long time, and I'm excited to see what it can do. Are you a believer in the jungle?
I'm a believer in Sino, and I think that's about where I cross the line. We're not going much further past that, but for you fans at home, expect to see a lot of auto-attacking from this chalk. Executioners, even Kin Size gets locked in pretty consistently, Stone Cutting Sword, and then potentially something like a Rune-Forged Hammer to get a little bit of that survivability going his way. Sino does not play chalk standard because it's not in Soul Lane, and it's not tanky.
Yeah, I've been a fan of the pure power build. A lot of Jotun's, Erendite, Heartseeker just start slamming people with that ultimate. You can go a little bit more auto attack base, as you were highlighting. I think that this Pele Chalk matchup is going to be interesting. A decent amount of sustain on both ends of that jungle. I can't wait, man. It's going to be fun to watch. But Sturdy Artisans, I think, have come away with a really, really strong comp. If you take away how weird the Chalk pick is, the other 4 are so traditional. I feel like they needed some extra spice here in the jungle pick.
Yeah, it can certainly work out. And some of that lacking AoE, yeah, Chalk makes up for that with the ultimate.
It's a good point. Game 1, Chungle and the SPL awaits us. Let's get down to the casters for Winter Dogs versus Sturdy Artisan.
Much appreciated aggro, Mifflin, Winter Dogs, Sturdy Artisans. Game 1. It's Dolson, it's Goremizer, and it's Doug on the camera for us to start off SPL kickoff day. Gore, it's like the night before Christmas, the night before your birthday, whatever you want. I mean, there's so much energy flowing through the team, through the community here today. And we've got a great matchup, honestly, to start off the day with. I mean, the SCC has seen such a rise and increase in level of play, I feel like, where last year you kind of had 1 or 2 teams sort of running through everyone in both of the regions. Everything seems so contested here, and so many names, so much talent down in the SEC level this year. It's certainly a treat to watch. And Gore, I'm going to pick up right where the desk left off. A treat to watch Sino play this Chalk out of the jungle.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch this. I think I doubted it a couple of weeks ago, and that was my bad, just because I think this is something that not only is going to work, but it's going to work well, right? And I say that with the knowledge that Sino just played ESET jungle and made it look really good. I think 1-2 games with it, maybe had it banned against him one of those games as well. Like, it's one of those things that you have to put belief in Sino, and I'm going to have that wholeheartedly until I see it fail. So I expect this to do pretty well. I also expect this team to do pretty well. I think Ionic, I had mentioned this the last time I got to see him on this, but Athena is one of his most played gods in his career in SMITE, so he knows what he's doing here in the support role, and I expect to see this duo lane hit pretty decently heavy because of Stuart over here on this Cupid. I think that's going to be a very heavy-handed punch, and so Sino theoretically can focus most of his time here to help out Moswall or maybe to help out Pagon over there in the the solo lane.
Yeah, I want to see how he plays this jungle pick. Obviously, we all do. I mean, Chalk can feel so oppressive sometimes, right? I mean, that ultimate, just big, massive silence that feels like lasts forever. So, depending on how Sino plays that, can certainly make an impact on this game early, mid, even on into late. We see some early pressure. Ionic and Stewart had UG Gamma push back beneath their tier 1 tower. The Athena certainly will do that to you. The dash in, the taunt through, sets up for some good damage, but you gotta be careful with stuff like this, Gore. Ionic, you overextend too much, you don't have that follow-up damage immediately, you tend to eat some of your HP in return.
Yeah, but look, he's got 4 health bots. He doesn't care right now. He is perfectly fine coasting through this lane. The biggest thing I'm actually really interested in seeing is the fact that they're getting so much pressure on Gamma. I think it's just because UG Heimdall, he hits hard, but he doesn't really hit as hard in the first few levels as he does in the last portion of the game, right? So it's going to take a little while for him to get online.
Aquarius does about half of Pagon's HP bar. Drops back, and it was Pagon, I believe, who dropped a ward back there. So Andy was always going to be spotted out there. Now Ionic, half HP, the health mattering a little bit more now. Can Gamma chase him down? Oh, the wall is there. Ionic, not enough on the sidestep. How about the return kill, though? Stewart will not chase it, and it's first blood over the Winter Dogs.
They're so low, Dave, but there's nothing you can do about it. Once the heart bomb disappears, yeah, this is the moment where I almost, like, always will hold W and end up inting because I think I can get a kill that I'm never going to be able to find. And that's why Stewart is up here, and I'm talking about it instead. That's the thing I think that's going to be crucial for them, though, is finding kills like that. Like, you had just mentioned Ionic getting a little too aggressive, a little overzealous. I was wondering when that return bout was going to come, and it almost entirely, at this point in the game, relies on Gamma. When that wall and freezes up, it's going to be solid. Whereas over here, you have the interesting thing of Pagon flexing to the solo lane.
Big stun there onto Andenster. Sino trying to make his impact early, but will he go down in return? He's got the kill, and now he's got out. Pagon on a bit of a body block. There's space in time from Crimson from the mid lane. The shot connects, and Sino goes down. Moswall, no chance to rotate into a fight like that. Great shot from Crimson. Important to get the return kill there. The Winter Dogs make it a 1-for-1.
I mean, that's like, look, it sounds like 101, but you have to understand shooting through space and time is so difficult because of its travel speed. You have to, decide where are they going to be. Even just going from lane to lane like that, from mid to one of the side lanes, is difficult to adjust for movement speed. And so being able to know thereabouts where you expect someone like Sino to be walking and to connect with it, that is something that you only get from experience. Crimson showcasing a lot.
Oh no, and still realizes he's gotten a 1-level advantage over Sino, uses the ultimate, gets in, does most of Sino's HP. And that's a worrying trend here, Gore, already 4 minutes into the game. Sino, a full 1 level behind, hasn't been able to farm up his own back camps there by the speed buff, Andy, and Crimson with a great invade. Admittedly, my data pool on Chalk Jungle is pretty small. I can't imagine it's something that you feel great getting behind early on.
No, I think this is something, I pretty much for all of Sino's picks, I think there's a really easy blanket statement of he needs to win with them, and I don't think it's going to necessarily do him that poorly falling 1 level behind. I don't think he's going to be suffering too hard from that, mainly because I saw him get behind on that E-set jungle and still look phenomenal on that, right? Like, again, it's not necessarily, like Mifflin said, it's not belief in the Chalk jungle, but it is belief in Sino playing whatever it is in the jungle that I have here. So falling a little bit behind, I think that does give Andinster a good amount of wiggle room. I think Pele, first off, is more well-suited to the jungle naturally because she's an assassin than what you're going to get to see out of Chalk. But it does give Sino an opportunity to look for, I want to say, fights that maybe you wouldn't expect him to take, especially right now when you think that he'd be focused a little more on something like farm.
Well, squad's all here as Ionic will use the ultimate. Rotate on over to Soul Lane as a fight was brewing. Gamma here as well. Great wall onto Ionic. We've seen this story before, but Ionic died last time with much less HP at the onset of the fight, so Ionic will survive this time. Gamma makes his way all the way over to the right-hand side. Crimson here as well. What's Sino looking for? Well, he's got Ionic, so he's got some support. Crimson, half of his HP gone, but the portal beneath the Tier 1 tower provides some safety. Gamma rotating in behind here as well. Could be a big freeze on the menu. Andinster lurking. Sino's stunned. Shotgun blast through space and time, melts on the health bar of Sino, but the return ultimate is there, and Andy works on it and gets the kill on the Sino. It's a double kill on the backline. Ionic just shy on the top. They're not going to get the kill on the Crimson. Disastrous fight, and the Winter Dogs look like they found 3.
I mean, it's just so wily. Ionic, that was almost a guaranteed kill in the sense that he did everything in his power to get that, save for that taunt. That taunt was just off the mark, and maybe you could blame him for that, although I think it just comes down to the fact that, I mean, Crimson might as well just be Wily Coyote. No, opposite. He should be the Roadrunner, because he's the one that's getting out of everything that he should not be. He's going through holes in the wall that just aren't there for anybody else, and it's working out well for him. And getting that movement speed buff, it's not something you think about often with Yanis, but having just a little burst when you go through your portals is making a huge difference in terms of escape there. I think otherwise he goes down, and it's at least a little bit more worthwhile for the Sturdy Artisans, but it's just so difficult to commit onto something that is literally going to walk through a wall to get away from you twice and then come back to kill you at the very end. And that just showcases that even though Chalk, I think with that nice big AoE silence, can have a lot of presence in the middle of a team fight, it's not all going to go your way. This is going to need to be a pretty big dynamic shift for Sturdy Artisans.
Well, you're looking at a 2K gold differential 7 minutes into the game, and certainly not unable to be overcome, but it's difficult if the Winter Dogs are going to keep this snowball rolling in the way it is. Crimson liking that early cooldown reduction into his build certainly is helping him in a lot of these fights. Pagon half HP here. That's Aquarius doing most of the damage. Sino maybe just a little bit of a bait here. It's the dash away and then the up down. But a big knockup from Aquarius. The taunt in from Ionic. You got to bring everyone if you're going to get a kill in this game. And the Sturdy Artisans, the successful gank, 3v1, pull back a kill.
In an ordinary world, I'd probably be saying that's way too much to commit into a solo laner just to get a single kill, and it still kind of feels that way, but at this point you've fallen pretty far behind. You need something, right? You just need a pick-me-up if you can find it. So I think that's a really solid kill for them, even though they expend a lot. Sino specifically would have been better off, I think, getting it. He's down 2 levels now, and this is where things, well, let's call it 1.5. He just ticked over to 8. That's where things are going to get a little more complicated. This Chalk needs the farm. I think it needs some of those items to stay kind of afloat in this game and to keep ganks like that coming on. And so it's going to take a little more time for him to catch up now to what Pele is going to be able to produce. And you can see Winter Dogs are kind of expecting him in Gamma. If that wall connects, that's a kill. If he's able to find good freezes, it's a kill. That's the kind of backup that he has and the setup that Gamma's going to be able to bring that right now Ionic just isn't fully in the position to do. Again, a little bit of a level deficit there, but he doesn't have the same kind of jungle presence backing him just yet because Chalk's going to take a couple of items to get online to the point where Sino is going to hit as hard as this Pele. And so use this early game lead while you have it, right? Absolutely knock him out of the park. You're only up about 1,000 gold. It's not enough to really run away with anything. And that's where I think Winter Dogs, like, you have 3 kills, you need a little bit more going in your favor. 1,000 experience, 1,200 experience is pretty solid, but I want to see him build it up a little bit more. 10 minutes in, let's try to get it as far away from that 1,500 mark. Go to up 2,000, right? Get a solid lead to make sure they can't fight back.
Well, Yuji has to use his ultimate in reply to Stewart, using the Field of Love, and both hunters will survive. I mean, Andenster and Gamma have been pretty relentless on those blue buff invades. I mean, effectively on cooldown. We've seen this Pele and the Ymir walking onto the Sturdy Artisan side of the map. All has been quiet on the left-hand side over in the duo lane once the supports have left. Gamma looking for something here, but nothing is there to be found. So now maybe we're able to take a bit of a deep breath here, but look at what Sino's doing here, Gore. I mean, he's still feeling confident enough to rotate out, maybe have Pagon. You've got Ionic here. I mean, you're rolling as kind of this squad of 3 or 4. And I suppose, why not stick your neck out, see if you can find something. But they know Pele, I think, just walked over a ward, and they're on the left-hand side, and that means Stewart is all alone here. The rotation's going to be a little bit slow, but Stewart is able to dash away, and instead of the blue buff invade, Gore, it's going to be the purple buff invade. This is clinical from Winter Dogs. It's not flashy, it's not all these fireworks, these massive fights. Well, it might be if you're going to Tier 1 tower dive Stewart, and why not when you got the damage that Andenster does. But have you been caught out here? Moswell, Sino, they're rotating in.
I think you would be caught out if that ult wasn't going to be so solid. Look at the damage, Dave.
Oh, and Sino with the big knockup, big silence. Moswell's got the kill. Andy makes it a double, though. Is the Pele going to be able to survive? Of course, when Crimson drops the portal for you.
Wall.
As his final note, Pagon's rotated over from solo as well. Gamma, half HP. The stun is on in, but the beads from the Ymir will keep Gamma afloat just for the time being. Ionic blinks on through. Double taunt in. That one connects, and here comes some damage. Moswell doing his fair share. Up into the sky goes one, and crashing back down to earth. Nobody's dead just yet. Yuji, no crystal to survive, and now Pagon and Moswell turn their attention towards Yuji, but Yuji's taking one with them if he's able to get the kill, and Moswell does. This is a chaotic fight, Gore. 8-4 in the kill column. Winter Dog still ahead.
I mean, that's a big flex from Yuji to get a kill before he goes down in a 1v2. He almost got a second one. Like, if Moswell is not Merlin, if he's just not a mage there, if he's playing anything else, Yuji walks away absolutely victorious because it's those big AoEs that really help put him down. But, I mean, that's such an interesting presence. Again, it goes for the purple buff of all things. And this was, again, another dash in onto Gamma. One more hit should be enough there. Yeah, they'll finally get that kill. This is the fight I wanted to see from Sturdy Artisans, although it is taking, I think, still a little bit longer to warm up for what they would like, right? Sino's 1 and 3. He's definitely putting the kills elsewhere on the team. I'm surprised they just went for the purple buff. I was surprised there was beads on Ymir. I felt a collective force shift as everyone's eyes went down there to look at the fact that, yes, he did, in fact, have beads as he had picked it up. But the more thing I'm kind of surprised about is that Greater Scorpion seemed like it would have been so much easier. Gorp over there on the left-hand side would have been much easier to pick up
so we're sticking
for
with
them.
Got it.
Because, I mean, yeah, like, why are you grabbing, like, purple buff is nice, and enhanced purple buff, though, sounds really good to me. I think they're just stripping a little bit away, but ultimately that fight kind of comes out as a wash, right? Like, I don't know if you truly win or lose that one. It just kind of comes out in the same game state towards the end of it.
Gore, I will pick your brain. If anyone's tuning in and has no idea what you just said, you said Gorp, right? And that's, what is that, Gold Fury
Scorpion. Gorp.
Scorpion. And then what's over here on the right-hand side? That's the Forp, I think, the Fire Giant Scorpion. All right, so you've now been informed if you hear Gorp or Forp, it's either left side or right side, Greater Scorpion. Andenster, though, on the right side, blue buff is going to invade once again. Sino's here, and so's Ionic. It's a bit scripted at this point if you're the Winter Dogs, then it might not be worth it. Pagon grabs the kill onto Andy, but Gamma trades back with a double. The support getting involved, and the Winter Dogs collapse just as well. It's a 2-for-1 trade with the blue buff invade from the Winter Dogs. And Gore, they are doing it on cooldown. That is not a surprise, I don't think, to the Sturdy Artisans at this point.
I want to give a lot of credit. I think Andenster's doing a lot, right? A lot of damage that comes down. But right now, Gamma and Crimson are like the stars of the show for me. First off, Gamma's 4-1-5 as a support. Maybe some last hits in there, but like, look at that! Look at that freeze! Look at the damage! Look at his presence on this Ymir right now. It is just so commanding compared to what you're getting out of anybody on Sturdy Artisans.
Whoa! Big Yuji with the crystal play gets around Stewart. The 1v1 over in the duo lane. Gore, this is SCC, isn't it? All the skirmishing and fighting that's going on, and now that's culminated in about a 2,500 gold lead for the Winter Dogs. Though that's what they had at 7 minutes in. D climbed to about 1,000 as the Sturdy Artisans took a deep breath, but has now climbed right back up to 2,500. Again, the big difference, though, Gore, at this point in the game has to be the 6K experience differential. That is massive. One level of it over in the jungle, and now a big gap for Crimson as well. Just the gank over there to the mid lane has put Moswell a couple levels behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so, again, Crimson, I think, has been essential to a lot of these fights. Look at that last one, right? That through time and space, just blasting through and dealing so much damage all over the place. Like, those are those moments where Crimson, even if he's not getting the kills, he's getting the damage out there for somebody else to find the kills. Yes, Gamma's 5-1-5. That's really funny to me as a support player. Like, that's ridiculous. You should never be 5-1-5. But at the same time, he's confirming the kills that maybe somebody else isn't, or he's being able to follow up on something like what Crimson is doing, what Andy's doing in the case that he goes down like he did in that last engagement as well. So it's just creating so much room for them in all of these kills. Plus, look, I've seen more phenomenal walls this set than I've gotten to see out of Ymir for a while. It's mainly because he hasn't picked up a lot. But just this combo potential from this team, as illustrated by that ult wombo combo with the portal, showcases that they're not something to mess with. Winter Dogs right now is playing at a different level.
Yeah, Pagon is gone for the third time this game, and Gamma just has to walk in. Crimson's there on the follow-up. This is a full team effort. Headlined, though, by Andenster and Gamma, I think, here. It's Ymir, third on the net worth charts above everyone on the Sturdy Artisans. It's going to be tough to win a game when that's the way things have gone here in the first 15 minutes. The Gorp goes down. Finally, Winter Dogs are going to grab that objective, which means Gold Fury will be looked at here in the next couple of minutes. Andenster continues this rapid pace, Gore, and unfortunately, as excited as we were for this chalk out of the jungle, it's a bit fallen by the wayside. Unconventional pick still, I think, in the Pele. We don't get to see her all that often. But it's just looking a little bit better here for Andenster.
I mean, comfortable is the best way I can describe the way Winter Dogs are playing right now, right? Like, they understand they're good at the game. They're playing gods. They know they can play really well. Like, when I came into this, I honestly thought Pele was the weakest link. All other 4 gods on this have been top tier for a while now, not just necessarily. I mean, Yanis maybe, I guess, coming into this year, since everyone except Heroin wasn't playing him last year. So now you've got this Pele, who we got to see off and on, again, in the Pro League, down here in the SCC a lot throughout Season 7, and Andy's just running her the way that you need to. He's going in with his ult, making sure that that kind of big burst essential at the start of the fight is there, and then he's playing Team Utility Maker. Like, he might go in for, you know, a couple of autos, but for the most part, he's doing what he just did there with knockups.
Well, fighting happening all over the map right now. It's Yuji who's maybe the most nervous about death, but look at this. Andenster, Crimson rotating in on the right-hand side. Ionic has used his ult to rotate onto the left. No ultimates left for the Sturdy Artisans. Winter Dogs got a few, so they want to collapse in here. Gamma around the backside. Stewart locked into the wall. The shell is there to provide a little bit of respite from the damage, and Stewart is able to dash away from the big detonate there, but Aquarius has blocked that escape, and now it's back and away from Big Yuji on the backside of the fight. But Gamma, he's still going beneath the Tier 1 tower here. A pullback in from Moswell. The freeze from Gamma, of course it connects. It's a double from Aquarius, and the Winter Dogs collapse.
Gamma and Yuji's health bar at this point have gotten so low every fight, and it's insane to watch them get away. Finally, they're going to be able to get something back on the side of the Sturdy Artisans. Solo for your mid and carry, though, maybe not exactly the trade they would have liked on the side of Sturdy Artisans, but I think at this point, anybody's better than nothing. And Aquarius, being a solo laner, has a lot of that farm. He's level 18. That's actually a pretty decent level jump on the side of Sturdy Artisans. There's some experience for them to pick up getting a bounty that big, just to try and, well, equal the gap. Because like you had said, with that 8,000, what was it, 6,000 experience we saw a little bit ago, 2 levels in solo, 2 in jungle, 1 there in mid, 2 in support, 2 in the carry. Like, they're just so far ahead on Winter Dogs. I expect more fights like that, where it kind of feels like a clown fiesta. It's all over the place, but realistically, it's just because Winter Dogs have so much wiggle room, they don't have to have a fully coordinated strike to just pick apart Sturdy Artisans. I mean, Gamma kind of ran off and did his own thing, and if you're a 6-1 and 7 Ymir, I'm never going to fault you for that. Like, you're always going to run off and do your own thing. You're going to chase Stewart off into the ends of the world just because, yeah, you can get that kill. He's the same level as you.
I agreed. I mean, it probably feels very awkward here as the Gold Fury will go down. It feels awkward, I imagine, for the Sturdy Artisans. You got this team comp that wants to go in, you know, behind Pagon, behind Sino, Yannick setting up these kills, and they have just been on the back foot from what feels like minute 1 here of this game, where the Winter Dogs have been driving the pace, and they're going to continue to do so here. It's another wall from Gamma that locks Pagon right into place. It's going to be the Somersault Cloud that has to get used on the way out. Aquarius had used his ultimate there as well, so solo lane ult for solo lane ult. But that's going to open up the door now for the Winter Dogs to continue to invade the backside of the map here. Just so much farm, I feel like, Gore, has been lost in this jungle. Andenster and whoever from the Winter Dogs have effectively taken away, I would say, the most of the camps that have been spawning here in the Sturdy Artisans jungle.
Yeah, it has been their jungle for a few minutes now, right? And honestly, I think it's going to continue that route. It doesn't seem like the Sturdy Artisans have really a lot of room, at least right now, to dig their heels in and fight back. If anything, Sino might create an opportunity, but this is a dangerous fight.
Big ult, big silence from Sino. There's a pullback in on the backside. Aquarius is all alone with 3 members of the Sturdy Artisans. Up and away. Big UG has found one with his ultimate. Andenster might finally go down. A perfect start to the fight for the Sturdy Artisans. You've gotten the assassin off the board, but Big UG will trade back one. Crimson through the portal, stays alive. Gamma uses the ultimate. 4 members of the Artisans, all grouped up together. Winter Dogs doing the same. 1-for-1 trade. Andy for Pagon.
Because they're so far behind right now, any 1-for-1 trade is favorable for Sturdy Artisans in terms of kill. Maybe not necessarily in terms of everything else on the map, because now you're going to be falling down, specifically right here, an enhanced purple buff giving some attack speed, bonus attack speed, on top of what it already does. I think now up to 25% there when it's enhanced for Yuji, so he's going to be hitting hard and fast throughout the rest of this game, or at least during the duration of that buff. And that's the downside. You get the 1 kill, you go 1-for-1. Technically better for you if you're Sturdy Artisans, because you're going to be able to pull some experience back in your favor and you get a little bit of a bounty. And then you lose all of that experience in the jungle anyway. So it's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back in a way, even though it's not necessarily their choice to lose all of that experience. They just can't do anything about it. And I think Forp over here is probably going to fall down pretty quickly as well. Because there's no reason to contest this one, right? You don't want to fight over the Scorpion. You want to wait until the Fire Giant and the Pyromancer are up. There's no reason to be over here just yet for him. Try to find some presence elsewhere on the map. You haven't gotten more than a single tower just yet. I think they could afford to do that. That one on left is just a tick away from dead. But they have to pay attention over here. With no Fury available on the map right now, it's going to be in the next, 30 seconds when this Fire Giant spawns where things really start to pop off for Winter Dogs.
And the bad news for the Sturdy Artisans is you're starting to get to level 20. If you're a couple members of the Winter Dogs here, Aquarius, Crimson have gotten there. You're going to upgrade those starter items a few minutes before anyone on the Artisans are going to be able to. Same goes for Gamma there over Yannick as well. Fire Giant has spawned. Still somewhat aggressive positioning here from the Artisans. They're kind of poking and prodding, trying to sense out where the Winter Dogs are, but quickly collapsing back to the Pyromancer. Is it worth dying over this objective? Sturdy Artisans say no. Aquarius first in. Knockup only catches out onto one. Sino immediately answers back with an ult of his own. Fire Giant swinging away onto the chalk, and Aquarius might just finish off the kill here. Yannick is in, though, with the ultimate. Saves Sino's life, but what's happening in the rest of the fight? Some damage has been ticked out, but both sides kind of limping away here. The portal, though, opens up the gates. Winter Dogs have now rejoined the fray. Stewart stunned, silenced on the back line. This is chaos as Pagon spins around some damage. Ionic, 3-man top, but where's the follow-up damage? Moswell's providing some of it, and Yuji will finally go down. There's finally a kill in this fight, but that's not all they've got.
And now look, I mean, they're chasing down Gamma. He's going to get the freeze off. He's pretty low. Ionic's there with a taunt. There's some follow-up. Not enough to find a second kill. Maybe it is. Pagon still wants to go in. They're diving. They could get through this tier 1 pretty fast.
Pagon had the stun. He had the damage there as well, but what are Sturdy Artisans looking for on the call here? They are leaving the tier 1 tower. They started Pyro a minute ago, but they are starting the big one this time. Aquarius close by. Big UG 30 seconds away. Half HP on literally everyone on the Sturdy Artisans right now. Fire Giant is low. Aquarius winks on through. Knock up off to the side, and the Sturdy Artisans take down the FG, and Stewart will get a kill to boot as well. What a gutsy
There
call,
it
but
is.
Crimson snipes down one. Unfortunately, Stewart is a bit of a sacrifice here. Are the rest going to go down? Moswell has to flicker away. The burn down damage, and the portal is in. Crimson with the double. But Gormizer, the sturdy artisans, they got the FG, and they've kept it on 3.
I mean, that was just hectic. That was all over the place from top to bottom. A really good engage for the initial portion of that fight. Let's roll it back to that Pyromancer. It's going to take a little bit. But you look at it, and they isolate Sino. They are looking to find a kill. If they get rid of that jungler, if they get the kill on Sino, then they're going to win this fight. But that is such good presence from Ionic to get that damage mitigation from the ult out on there. Now Sino is, look at this, with Fire Giant and all these items, he's smacking like a truck. Amnitzer can't take this fight anymore. It's a warrior that you're trying to go head-to-head with there. And it just doesn't work the same way. And the blood in the water smell that Winter Dogs had around that first Pyromancer kind of fell apart with the portals coming through the way they did, with Winter Dogs kind of getting separated the way they did in their engagement. I think the chaos really paid off for the sturdy artisans there. It made it a lot easier for them to turn and burn 1 or 2 members of Winter Dogs instead of having to focus on the whole team fight at once. And once the chaos came through, I honestly thought it was risky to get that Fire Giant, but Aquarius kind of showcased that if the timing's not perfect, no one else was able to get in there. Crimson's ult was just off in terms of timing to get the steal. So all of a sudden they get to walk away, and yeah, you only have 3 members with it, but that's better than what Winter Dogs have, right? They had a massive lead that has now been taken down a little bit. You still have a lot of gold on the map to be able to pick up. Sino benefits, I think, heavily from having this Fire Giant, not in just terms of sustain, but his attack power and his damage that's going to come through. This is a really interesting match for Sturdy Artisan. Still behind, but definitely not out.
Very close game. If you were to tell me that Sino was going to be the first one between him and Andenster to hit level 20, I would have laughed at you a few minutes ago, but he was. Bumba's hammer now for Sino. Big knock up on the backline. Crimson, he's been hitting these ults all game, and he does not miss this time. Moswell down immediately. Andenster, though, they want to make good on this lead that they've got. Pagon will turn around to kill a double for the solo laner, the sturdy artisans. 2-for-2 trade as we stand. Ionic effectively out of the fight. Crimson with some move speed's going to try to get in there. Ionic attempting to go back to base. He survived the fray of this fight, and now Pagon will attempt to do the same here as well. The beads perfectly timed. Keep him out of the ultimate from Big Yuji, but will keep him from death. Ionic says, yes, how are they alive? Ionic goes back to base, ults back in, Pagon gets the kill. What a play from the sturdy artisans.
I mean, this is absolutely coming specifically from the fact that they've got a Guardian and 2 Warriors, right? Like, Sino, even though he has gone for things like this stone cutting, looks like he's going for this Ichaival maybe next. Maybe he's going Oboe. Ichaival next, that he comes in. He's tanky, right? I mean, he's living through these engagements. He's got a lot of sustain, partially from Fire Giant, but also just inherent shock healing that comes through. A massive slow, a massive silence. Like, they're killing off Moswell and they're killing off Stewart like it's nothing on the side of Winter Dogs. And then they are struggling with everything after that. Everything that comes after the initial portion of the fight. The backliners, they don't matter this time around. Sturdy Artisans, it's all coming from Sino, Pagon, and Ionic, and it's Ionic's really good timing on his ults to make sure that that damage mitigation comes through on the right targets, as well as the fact that Pagon and Sino are just playing out of their damn minds. I mean, 7, 4, and 4 right now for Pagon. Maybe not necessarily this flashy, bright, brilliant as what there was 6, 1, and 5 Ymir was earlier.
Yep.
But it's still insane considering he's doing that without a mage and without a carry.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Moswell's doing his best to just get his damage off.
He's just trying to survive,
he goes down. Right, because look, the snipes from Crimson have been near perfect this entire game. Andenster has been there for a huge burst damage setting up these kills. I mean, the team fight has been there from the Winter Dogs. It just slows down after they get the kill on the carries. It's some backwards world we're living in here. Now the Fire Giant has fallen off. Luckily for Winter Dogs, the sturdy artisans weren't able to get much done. Tends to help when your Hunter with the FG buff goes down. But Fire Giant will be back here in another minute or two. Pyromancer is alive and well here as well. And Gore, we're effectively dead even. It's actually a 1,000 or so gold lead for the sturdy artisans. Everyone's starting to tick over to that level 20 mark, so the starter items are going to be the big thing to look at. And that golden XP chart, I think, just kind of tells the story. This big, sweeping, early mid-game win from the Winter Dogs that has now just been pulled away. The resilience of the sturdy artisans team has kept them in it, and now I think we'll see a contested FG.
If you're ever spectating a friend's scrims and you see the charts look like that, and they're unfortunately on the team that had the lead and now it's gone, you need to go back and scrub over those last few minutes, right? Because that's where the issues were. And a lot of it here, at least for Winter Dogs, has been nothing more than that Fire Giant fight gone awry, right? That is the start of what feels like not necessarily the end for them, but this flip around that we've started to experience. Now Sturdy Artisans are controlling things like the Pyromancer. They feel confident around the Fire Giant pit. And it is, again, it's not because of Moswell and Stewart. I think Moswell and Stewart's damage is very important, like you had highlighted. I think their ults are going to, well, the ult from Stewart is going to be very crucial, and then all 9 abilities that Moswell is able to throw out are going to be very crucial in the fight. But if they die, as long as they get those big plays out first, then it doesn't necessarily matter. They can be 2-6, they can go 2-10 for all I care, if that means that Pagon, Sino, and Ionic are able to follow up and find the remainder of whatever's left. Even if it's just 2 or 3 kills each fight, they don't have to team wipe. They don't need that deicide every time. Just enough to make it so that Winter Dogs can't contest the way they would otherwise. And that comes especially true around this Fire Giant. Try to find a couple of picks. Crimson seems to be off on his own, and Pagon's looking for blood.
Yeah, damage chart's pretty telling here. Moswell pretty much even with Crimson despite the lower KDA. Look at the cleave damage, though. Sino and Ionic have not been able to participate through space and time from Crimson. A rare miss from the mid laner. Pagon controlling the backline, and look at the space that's bought for the rest of the Sturdy Artisans to take this fight over way in the front. A double kill. Finally, Stewart can get something done. And now Crimson half HP. Big UG there as well. He'll go back to base. The portal is used. A lot of that brought to you by Pagon, keeping Crimson out of the fight.
I mean, it's one of those things, there's 2 ways to look at it. That one first engagement around Fire Giant, the first one, not this one that is now respawned.
Can they end?
Probably going, you could equate that to, maybe a throw that an MLB pitcher would be jealous of.
Try.
But I would also say that this has just been great play from Sturdy Artisans.
Sturdy Artisans going for the end core, and it looks like they might have gotten it. The Titan is down to half HP, and it's all down to Crimson. Everyone else 15 or so seconds away. Massive damage on the Moswell, but damage isn't going to save the game. The Sturdy Artisans, are you kidding me with the turnaround on game number 1 here? This is a 30-minute game that I thought was over in 20 minutes, the way things were going there. But it's not to be. What a turnaround there, Gore, and whether you want to equate that to the Chalk Jungle or whatever it may be, the front line really got it done here. And the back line just, they had to survive and they had to get their damage off, and they were at least able to do some of that.
I mean, I was saying, like, I didn't expect Chalk Jungle to do a whole lot in the early game and to pop off as he got items online. I didn't expect that to really be the transition that the game made, right? Like, that path that they took to victory, it just kind of peeled apart. It just felt like the mental on Sturdy Artisans was so formidable that it didn't matter how many deaths they lost at the very beginning. They knew they were still in it at, 5K down 20 minutes in.
Yeah, my mental is way too fragile for a game like that. I'm F6ing the moment we're 5K down, 15 minutes in, whatever it may be. So hats off to the Sturdy Artisans for keeping the mental in this one and taking the win here in Game 1. Quick break. We'll be back for Game 2.
I saw some of you doubters in the chat about the jungle. I actually didn't check the chat, but I assume they were there. But that's why you put some respect on Sino's name. He comes out with the victory. The jungle now with another victory under Sino's belt. Miff, it did not look good for the vast majority of that game, though, for the Sturdy Artisans. They had to battle back in this one.
Yeah, the Winter Dogs had a firm grip on that match for the first 20 or so minutes, maybe even up until the very last couple of team fights. It was due in large part to phenomenal play from the guy you just saw slamming a snipe from all the way across the map, young Erupt Crimson out of mid. Gamma, in particular, I think deserves a shout-out for his team, or as many shout-outs as the losing team should get, because that Ymir play was looking incredibly strong, but it's the tale as old as time, man. The Winter Dogs struggle past that 25, 30-minute mark.
And really end up losing it in some of these late-game team fights, but overall, I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. This Winter Dog squad got off to a really good start. A first blood in duo lane and off a really nice play from Gamma and Yuji. I thought Yuji played very well. Of course, we have to highlight the substitution that's happened here. Sturdy Artisans normally with Pagon in mid, Relentless One in the solo lane, but Relentless One not here today. So instead, it's Moswall coming in. Of course, he and Sino, plenty of synergy there in the mid jungle. That's the word I was looking for, because of their world championship together. And Pagon over there in the solo lane ends up making it work. 7-4-5 for a guy who's off roll. Not too bad for Pagon.
No, he definitely looks good on that Sun Wukong inside of the soul lane. He was playing that constant role of, where's Yuji, where's Crimson, I'm going to go stand near them. Sino, the rest of the boys, please win out in the team fight everywhere else. And at that 30-minute mark, it certainly works out that way, but I got to give some special shout-outs to Ionic, one of the last old guard supports still playing the game. That Athena play was incredibly intelligent. The ultimate usage was very good, and that very last play around the Fire Giant where he was able to stop Crimson's back for just about a full minute to make sure his team had time to work their way through the Phoenix and into the Titan room. Incredibly intelligent play.
It's how a Sturdy Artisan team win, man. They get you to the late game, or they just come at you with a different type of strategy, and they just seem to work better as a unit than most other teams. Winter Dogs now, I mean, I feel like you had that game nearly in the bag, and then it somehow slipped away from you. I don't know how much you need to change. I mean, I think that like you said, the Ymir play from Gamma was really solid. Yuji looked phenomenal on that Heimdall. I'm probably just trying to stick to my guns and just hope that we execute better in the mid to late game from the Winter Dogs.
Yeah, I wouldn't change too much up inside of the picks, but maybe a couple ban changes. You don't want to really have to deal with that Athena again or something along those lines. I mean, Ionic was looking incredibly strong, man, and matched up with Athena being back in the meta, I think Ionic's going to have a very good time every single time he's able to pilot that god.
Agreed, and maybe taking Pagon off that Wukong. You know, he's off roll. You don't know how many gods he's practiced on over there in that solo lane. Might be the call here for the Winter Dogs as we go into the picks and bans for game number 2. ESET again banned away again from Sino, and this time the Apollo is going to switch sides, banned by the Winter Dogs this time around instead of the Sturdy Artisans.
Guan Yu and Tiamat on the other side, largely standard, I'd say. If the only thing that might be unstandard is Umoja making her way through the bans yet again, but she was kind of ignored back in game 1. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see the same in game 2. The Winter Dogs making their first pivot here. Athena ban. No more Ionic. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Don't want to make that a priority pick on the other side. This could open up Umoja with Athena being off the table, but Gamma, I don't believe, is a Umoja player, at least that we've seen from him in the last year. Could be mistaken, of course, but really stuck to those warriors and aggressive Guardians more like Ymir. As Set is the pickup first overall. Those who watched this Winter Dog squad last year in particular know how much Andenster loves this pick. I'd be surprised if it was going anywhere but Andy's hands in the jungle.
Completely agree. I think Andenster is probably the best at piloting that god on his team, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Set still does operate as at least a pseudo flex pick. Could go into mid, could even potentially go into solo, but I think your read is absolutely correct, Aggro. It's likely going to be going to the jungle for the Winter Dogs, whereas Artisans, the other end, get themselves a pretty nasty duo lane, so that could flex solo. I don't think it will. That duo lane is incredibly strong. Not many gods can stand up against that kill pressure that Pluck and a Heart Bomb brings.
Always a classic kill lane over there with the Sobek and Cupid. And like you said, Ionic, part of that old guard, love that he's going back to it. That's definitely a comfort pick for him. As the Giannis once again for Crim, I mean, Krim got off to a really good start, had a couple of great snipes in that last game. The Giannis always feels so hit or miss, but Krim was hitting more than he was missing in game 1.
He was, man. He was looking like, really, he was looking like Hurrywin for the first 10 or so minutes as consistently as he was hitting those snipes all the way across the map. 6 minutes in, snipes zone and duo. 7 minutes in, does the exact same thing in solo. So if he's able to bring that level of play consistently into game 2, I think Winter Dogs are absolutely correct to go back to this pick. Sun Wukong getting picked up again as well means that they can go back to their comfort picks as well. An incredibly safe lane that's going to have decent rotations. Artisans rounding out their top 3 with a Morrigan, though, is a little bit interesting. It's been almost an aversion to the standard mages in the set so far, but the Morrigan can certainly work out and has decent matchup into both Set and Yanis if she's able to get the jump on him.
I mean, Set's so good whenever he has his ultimate. Morrigan can just be that version of Set, whatever she wants, and really set up the dive really effectively. It's a hard pick to pilot properly, but Maswal has proven time and time again that he can pilot just about anything. He's a world champion, for God's sake. So I think that I've got no concerns there for him. Ymir and Kepri banned by the Artisans, and Kamazotz and Chalk taken away by the Winter Dogs. Look, no matter what Sino does the rest of the set, he got Eset and Chalk banned from him in the jungle. He just win. Like, that's a win, right? It doesn't matter how he plays.
Yeah, if you were controlling P's and B's that much with unorthodox, out-of-pocket picks, I think you're feeling pretty good about yourself. If I'm Sino, my ego is absolutely through the roof right now, especially if banning Eset and Shock Jungle forces you into playing Nemesis. Sino essentially says, hey, you forced my hand. I'm just going to play something good this time.
Oh no, I've got to play a good god. Oh no, what am I gonna do? I think you're right to put it that way. As Kumba Karna comes through, the first pick so far in the SCC North American side. We saw it in Europe yesterday, a decent amount actually. Kumba pretty good against these melee-oriented characters, and Morrigan is going to be transforming into a melee-oriented character more likely than not. You've got this this Nemesis as well. I mean, I'm a notorious Kumba hater, but overall, I think this is actually a pretty good draft for him.
Yeah, I think Kumakarna fits in very well here. Being able to remove Nemesis from the playfield for a team fight would be very good. Morgan ultimate transforms into your set. Let me just epic uppercut into Mesm. All right, all of a sudden Morgan's just back into her base form. It's a very good pick into this enemy team's draft as Uller gets locked in. That kind of mixes things up a little bit here. Does that mean potentially we could be looking at an Uller solo? I think it is likely going to be the Morrigan going into mid because we know Maswal likes that pick, but it's very versatile. It's very interesting, this draft.
Yeah, something. Look, part of my gut wants to say Uller jungle Nem solo to really throw everyone for a loop, but I think you're right. I think I'm going Uller solo, Nem jungle, and Pagon traditionally a mid laner. Uller, one of those gods that most mid laners have in the pool, is just a fun hunter to play in that mid lane. I mean, maybe who knows? It's going to be a little bit weird either way. Certainly a fairly weak front line here for the Sturdy Artisans. I think Ionic's play is going to be pretty critical. As the only tank on the map for his side, can he shoulder that weight alone and find the 2-0 for the Sturdy Artisans? Let's find out. It's Dave and Gore for Game 2.
Yeah, but who needs tank when you got 4 damage dealers on your team, I guess? It is Pagon playing the Uller solo. Goremizer, what an interesting turn of events we've got here. There's been a little spice sprinkled in to this matchup since picks and bans from game number 1 on to game number 2 we go. Charged Morningstar is the start, no starter item. Give me the assessment, Doc. What are we looking at here with Uller solo?
Man, I think we are. I was actually going to. I was anticipating Bluestone. It's something that used to be very popular. Was this Bluestone Uller? But realistically, I think it's. I have no idea. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm trying to trace through it. My brain's going through all the avenues that it can for it, and it's not gonna be able to bring the tanky nature. Right? It's almost the opposite of what they had last game. Last game, you've got. What, 2 warriors, 1 tank, all kind of bruisery, all in the capabilities of dealing damage and fighting. This feels much more kill you dead style of play, a long range there for Uller. I don't think he's going to necessarily suffer in lane against something like Aquarius. I do think he's going to take a little while to get online. We're probably not going to be talking too much about Pagon unless it's unfortunately, on the receiving end, I think for Andy, that might be some easy ganks, depending on whether those axes hit for Pagon to make sure that that set stays far away. Otherwise, I think this is a conversation, again, as late game goes, into how well you can mesh together. Moswell as Morrigan, that's going to be a Wukong, all right? Almost every single time. Maybe a Sobek.
Right.
Like, it's going to be another tank to me, as opposed to transforming into something like Crimson, unless they really want to make some interesting Yanis plays. I think for the most part, Moswell is going to be the linchpin that kind of allows Pagon to flex around and be this Uller that they have in solo lane.
Man, what a ravishing loss of a trade that Moswell and Sino just had in the mid lane there. Moswell couldn't participate because he was at half HP. Sino was able to do some damage, but then Crimson hits the portal. Feed the hot hand is a great saying here, and Crimson was looking good despite the loss on this Giannis. All those abilities continuing to hit. A pluck over onto Gamma, though. Will do a little bit of damage. No serious kill pressure just yet, unless Stewart had that heart bomb up. Gore, another thing, I mean, I think it was a good mention there. I'll see what happens to Yuji here. Looks like not much. Is in and out of the wall he goes. Gamma will get plucked on over again. Stewart and Ionic continue to put out pressure. The one level lead in the duo lane now building for the Sturdy Artisans. But at some point, right, every duo lane, the support has to leave the hunter in the nest for the hunter to kind of grow and farm on their own in the solo lane. I wonder if there's some concern. We'll just have to see how it plays out, because we don't see this all that often. I mean, you're going to have to do that with Pagon, where he's going to have to just stick behind and not able to rotate out with Aquarius. I suppose that's what solo laners do anyway, but
yeah.
There's just so much intrigue, I think, built around how this solo lane hunter is going to play and build. I got more questions than answers, but I hope some of that will start to change here in the next 2.5 or so minutes. But the big thing, I think, for the early game, regardless of how that transitions to mid and late, is putting out decent damage, sustaining on your mana, but withstanding this Bluestone Sun Wukong, because that just absolutely can decimate your health bar.
That's the onslaught, right? It's surviving against, like you said, the Wukong and against this set, right? Sino's not going to necessarily be the tankiest person, and neither is Pagon, right? Both of them are pretty easy targets for either Aquarius or Andenstar over here to just tear them apart if possible. And so, losing your blue buff, like, it's almost expected in moments like this that things might just not go your way.
UG in and out of the wall, still has the beads on the Chernabog, so somewhat safe still over here in the duo lane. I mean, look, here's a moment of potential concern. Pagon's going to have to go back to base here. He has no mana, has half of his HP bar, and in the meantime, Aquarius is level 5, full HP, got the blue buff for his mana, and feeling pretty good about it. So maybe that's what we expect, though, Gore, right? I mean, that's sort of the onset of this game, and what we assumed would happen with Aquarius having that Bluestone Sun Wukong. So Pagon, I suppose not dying just yet, is already playing this lane well.
And this is something, again, we've seen it in the past. Like, we've had mages go solo, we've had hunters go solo, and it's often on whether or not it's going to be successful. Sometimes they get bullied into oblivion, but it means that the rest of the team gets to farm their brains out because the jungler's wasting their time over there in the solo lane. And sometimes it's, again, very similar to this, right? A very pseudo-stalemate. You're not necessarily losing. You're not really winning. You're just standing there menacingly at each other until something bad happens to one or the other. A good gank comes off either from Sino here or from Andy to make sure somebody gets that first blood. But the biggest thing is when those rotations happen. Right now, Moswell, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he goes the same blanket build. We've kind of seen that Spear of Deso with the boots, and then eventually the, like, Rada Tahuti, maybe Obsidian Shard to get some pin. Like, those have been like the 3 items that really are getting picked up often. But for Pagon, it is focus on being a hunter, right? You are playing the same way Stewart's going to play, the same way you'd be playing if you were on that side of the map. You're just looking for damage. You're looking for fights. You're going to be able to be this long-range just Adonis for your team, right? A lot of damage for very little, like, sacrifice because you get to stay hanging back. But Moswald's build is the one that interests me the most out of the two of them, because is he going to go a little more tanky as the Morrigan, even though when he transforms he'll be kind of inherent that, or is he going to go for the damage and kind of play this hybrid frontline when they need it, but really the damage Morrigan when they want it?
You can already see the confidence in the ability to gank this solo lane from the Winter Dogs. Pagon now being tier 1 tower dove. Aquarius up into the Somersault Cloud, half HP on the Uller, but everyone from the Winter Dogs is here except for Big UG. First blood over to Andy, and now there's an uppercut as well. This could be a double, and Aquarius will pick up the second of 2 kills. Andy with 1, Aquarius with the other. The Winter Dogs collapse on the right side of the map.
And again, part of me wants to start screaming gloom and doom from the top of my lungs at the top of the mountain, but at the same time, I'm just not worried for this team right now. I think they fell behind on harder picks to come back from last game, and then they won. So I don't think we can really doubt out even one level deficit here for Pagon, anything that they're going to be able to do. I think right now the pressure is going to be over here. Stewart, Eonic, Moswell. That's where I think a lot of the wins will come from Sturdy Artisans at the very beginning. And then as time transitions on, we'll start looking at Sino and Pagon as these big impact players. Sino specifically, I mean, Nemesis is not necessarily known for her ability to hard carry herself. She's not always going to be 10-2. Sometimes you get those games and they look phenomenal, but most of the time it's just, I'm going to ult this guy. Now you ult him, and Pagon and Stewart just melt them like they don't exist. I think that's going to be Gamma's fate. That's going to be Aquarius's fate. Towards the late game, it's going to be difficult to dive this team, because if Sino has his ult and is ready, then they will not survive a backline dive. You have to be very careful in those late-game engagements how you're going to be able to get into it, which is why I'd say it's even more crucial now, much slower than last game in terms of pace and in terms of kill count. I think it's important for Winter Dogs to once again try and get that early game lead that they had last time, and then just be way more hyper-focused around every fight they take so that they don't end up losing one and falling behind.
Well, the script is set. Remember, game 1, Andenster got this lead, a lead on the right-hand side of the map with Aquarius as well. They invaded the blue buff almost every single time. That's exactly what Aquarius is doing here. He's got about a 400 or 500 gold lead over Pagon. You're building into that Soul Eater. You can out-trade this Uller if need be. Blue buff has been dropped down on the invade on the right-hand side, and it looks like Aquarius is just trying to prevent Pagon from moving in and picking that up, but sensing that maybe Sino is close by, Pagon will end up collecting the blue buff. So, invade over on the right, unsuccessful, but still the pressure exerted. Now Andenster lurking over here towards the mid, Gamma in as well. Hasn't had the same effectiveness as the Ymir did so far in game 2 as the Ymir did in game 1, but obviously you can't when you're on the Kumbhakarna. But Gamma's still participating in 2 out of the 2 kills that have happened here so far, and still aggression, though, into the Sturdy Artisan side of the map, Gore. This was kind of that slow bleed that occurred in game number 1 where the Sturdy Artisans just fell behind. They kind of had to forfeit all of the camps on the right side of the map. Oh, it's going to happen again.
And honestly,
Pagon
yeah.
now getting tower dove. Sorry there, Gory. Up to the somersault cloud goes Aquarius, and the leap away from Pagon. At least save his life for the time being. I'm not sure the Winter Dogs want to chase any further, and Pagon will survive.
But this is what should be happening, right? Like, come strip away anything that you can in the jungle and force Pagon to feel uncomfortable. Force him to ideally use those beads. They didn't get the beads that time around, so Pagon still has a pretty large avenue of safety right there. But now that you've shown yourself over there, you can, guess what? Go visit Moswell.
Moswell transforms, but everyone finds death eventually, and Crimson is going to be the one to serve it to him this time. Now Sino being chased out of his own jungle. Purple buff invaded. Winter Dogs completing the early game from game 1, transitioning that into the early game here into game 2. Stewart, though, rotates over, drops down the Fields of Love, and that's enough to make the Winter Dogs want to retreat. Eonic still in on the chase here, looking for the pluck in just a second, and Andenster gets caught, and Sino will find the first kill of the game for the Sturdy Artisans.
That's just good, finally being able to turn something around for them. But again, it takes a lot of sacrifice to get to that point. Like Sino, Pagon, and Moswell have all died at some point in this game. But I still think
nice.
Sturdy Artisans don't care too much. Again, this is a team 10 minutes, honestly 15 minutes in, I don't expect to see it doing a lot until Pagon is able to finish that Transcendence where he goes right now. So he's able to pick that one up. He's finally going to be able to start getting those stacks. That's going to be, I think, the big leap for Pagon to start being a little more impactful. Like, I think he's going to survive a little better in the lane. He's going to have more mana to his name. He's going to be able to fight back a little bit harder. But realistically, I'm looking for one more item on pretty much everybody there on Sturdy Artisans before I really start to believe in their capabilities in team fights. Probably just a few more minutes until that really clicks off for them. Even if they just get tier 1s, tier 2s for that, it's going to start the not beginning of the end, but really seal the deal and create things in a more equal plane. And so if they are able to take a couple camps, come over here, grab a Gorp, they're going to be pretty happy with that, right? Again, little experience, anything they can put in their pocket in terms of gold and XP right now to try and equalize what has now become about 1,000 to 1,200 gold lead here for Winter Dogs.
And Aquarius is going to start to proxy some of the waves here on the right, and when you've got a 2-level lead and a decent amount of gold over your lane opponent, why not? Let's see what Pagon has got in store here. He'll transform, but Pagon is losing this fight. Eventually, the jump away is there. The up down from the Somersault Cloud. Aquarius not proccing the tower just yet. His minion will do that for him, and Aquarius solos down Pagon. It only felt like a matter of time, and now look at the right-hand side. Tier 1 power down. Aquarius, excuse me, is going to keep this push going, and now Sino being looked at a 3-level deficit. Aquarius is melting that health bar down. Sino has the ultimate, though. Strip away some of those protections, slow him down. You've got the damage now to do it. But in comes one more, and now it's Sino. It's Maswal who transformed to the Chernobog. I was wondering if Yuji was coming to save the day, but he was not. And it's Maswal instead who helps out his jungler.
That was some next level, like, ulting to become Yuji, to ult, to get the slow, to make sure that he stays close to Sino. Also, I guess, to get over there and help him out. But at that point, Sino had the deal done and done. That ult comes through. And again, that's a good kill to pick up for your jungler here. A 3-level deficit over there in solo, so Pagon not necessarily feeling too happy with it, trying to catch up to that level 13 Wukong on the other side. But a level lead, about a 1.5 level lead there in the jungle, a level lead there for Stewart as well. Even though some of the big leads, specifically there for Aquarius, exist on the side of Winter Dogs, it hasn't been enough to really stop the rest of the map for Sturdy Artisans. In fact, the dual lane is pretty widely successful at this point. Ionic and Stewart are about a level and a half up on who they're playing here, and Yuji and Gamma, even though they're a little more impactful in terms of kill count, haven't really been able to do a whole lot compared to what we were seeing on the Emir last game.
Stewart, at the moment, 2 levels up. I imagine Yuji will close that gap here shortly. He'll actually have to go to base. So you're right, Gore. There is a growing level disparity on the left-hand side of the map. So the question then becomes, can Pagon keep his wits about him over here on the right-hand side? Because it's a 3-level difference for Aquarius right now. Aquarius can effectively solo anyone on the map, and maybe even 2v1 if those abilities are hitting properly. Look at this from Sino, not dissuaded by slight experience differential, and Stir will work in. Crimson snipes on through with the ultimate. Fields of Love from Stewart this time will lock in a couple from the Winter Dogs, but Yuji's rotated over, gotten the first kill of the fight onto Sino, and now Stewart will have to dash away. Crimson there with the close range shot, gets the second kill of the fight. Ionic left running as well. This is a lost fight for the Sturdy Artisans. You're just trying to stem the bleeding.
I mean, at this point, it is almost an easy flowchart to figure out how to tell if Winter Dogs are going to win. And it's all, I mean, he just got a kill, so it's even easier to talk about him. All on Crimson, right? 3-0-3. If Crimson's ult connects either at the beginning of the fight or in the middle of it, then Winter Dogs are going to win that fight. And if it does
like
not,
it always does,
all of a sudden, that's when things fall apart, right? At the very beginning of last game, Crimson's hitting some insane shots. We're talking a lot about this Yanis and what he's able to do. Same thing happening right now, right? He's just good at this god, and he's a great player, and he's kind of reminding us why every step of the way, every team fight that he is getting in has been a not even subtle reminder, a very fresh reminder as to why people are worried about him. And you have to admit, like, Artisans right now, they're playing with a sub, like Maswal stepping in, Pagon going over to where Relentless One would be, and Pagon over there in the solo lane where he's not necessarily used to being, right? Had a really great game number 1, and I still expect a lot of great things for them, but Crimson is just playing his role through and through right now, and it is making things so much more difficult not having someone like Pagon in the mid lane. Even though Maswal, I think, is a phenomenal player. I mean, Maswal and Sino have a world championship under their belt, right? Like, they're not players to glance over, but they are, you know, not really driving force right now in this game versus what Crimson has been able to do.
Right, in the same way that the Winter Dogs have copied and pasted their strategy from the early and mid of Game 1 here on to Game 2, Sturdy Artisans have to do the same. They have found themselves at a decent deficit. Annenster is going to look over to Forp on his own. Looks like he'll be able to do so. Winter Dogs are going to secure their own red buff here. Not for a lack of trying. Eonic still lurking close by. And it's going to be the transition, not only, Gore, from Pagon, from this early to mid to late. A couple levels behind still. Get this Uller in a position where he can really compete. I think the desk raised a really good point and maybe a bit of concern. Ionic has kind of got to play out of his mind here, this game being the one and only tank that his team has got. We'll see if Yuji can get out of this one. Yuji will use the ultimate, but he's got a heart bomb on him. Shell used this time, and a lot of that damage is mitigated, but you can't mitigate Sino on the chase, and Yuji will take a tumble. Interesting to stick around under that tier 2 or tier 1 tower.
Not only getting the kill, but like you said, getting that tier 1 alongside him. Chin size just now finished there for Stewart, so he's going to be hitting a power spike. The Aussie picked up there for Pagon as well. I think there's a lot of fight potential. That's one thing you tend to forget. It's easy to forget. But every point Uller puts into his ult when you're in axe stance is now lifesteal that he's going to be able to get. And with Aussie, if he gets low, switches to axe stance, and runs and fights a jungle camp, he's going to be back to full health.
That's right. And that's something to look out for. Maybe this skirmish here. Ionic is half HP, lurking in the waters. He'll survive, but it's a root down from Gamma. Crimson hits the shot, and now it's an uppercut. Ionic just cannot play the game, poor guy. Then it's a through space and time on the back end from Crimson to do a little extra damage to Pagon. My man is playing this Giannis near perfectly. A portal as well will send maybe one off to the side, and Ananster will get the kill onto Moswell. One by one, the Artisans walk in, and one by one, they go down. Pagon in his own base by his own Titan has to work away, and Aquarius will use the beads and the blink in this fight. He'll stay alive. There's still a Phoenix. There's still a tier 2 tower. Unfortunately, on the other side, Yuji continues to get bullied. So, Gore, at least the Artisans are finding somewhere to put some pressure, and that's over onto Yuji on the left-hand side.
Oh, they're picking up little objectives that are helping them out as well, right? I can't remember where that last Fury went, but knowing that that Pyromancer kind of swings their way, like those are the little plays that are pulling things back. This Oni Fury, I think, is going to be maybe pivotal for them. If Sturdy Artisans don't get it, could be the end-all be-all. There's still 4 towers standing on each side, but it's a lot easier, I think, with the Winter Dogs lead to come in and knock down 3 of those 4, even without a Fire Giant, than it is for where Sturdy Artisans are. They're looking for little picks. How can they find small fights? Where can I get this tier 1 in, and if I'm able to kill off Crimson, things like that. It is just target switching, right? It's just the fact that Sturdy Artisans are kind of all over the place, and because they only have 1 tank, it's pretty easy to burn them down. And there's no way. I mean, they're starting up a Fire Giant. They technically have damage to burn this, but this feels like a bait. I'm looking, again, where's Moswell, and who is he going to transform into when that ult is available? And where's Ionic going to be for these engagements? Because I think those two are the most crucial members of Sturdy Artisans to determine if they just get rolled over or if they're going to be the ones doing the rolling.
Big Yuji uses his ultimate there, Gore, and that's actually pretty important. Had the Sturdy Artisans stuck around and continued to look for that objective, at least for the next little bit of time, there won't be the immediate translation of left side pressure of the right side pressure from this Chernobog. So instead, Yuji will start to wander his way to the right-hand side of the map as there's a little bit of pressure being put out by the Winter Dogs on this tier 2 tower. Ionic is there, staying close by, doing his best to counteract a lot of the pressure that Gamma's been putting out. Has done somewhat successfully throughout this game so far. You know, it's pretty obvious, Gore, why this pressure kind of keeps getting put on the right, doesn't it? I mean, Aquarius is 3-1-3, 2-1-5 from Ananster, and Crimson there, able to put out pressure from either his through space and time or just rotating over to the right. But now maybe a switch up. Let's get Sino behind. Let's get Stewart behind as he's got the 1-level lead over Big Yuji here. So the Winter Dogs send everyone over to the left-hand side. Aquarius is there, and of course Crimson will hit this ultimate as well. Ananster under the tier 2 tower, and Stewart being whittled away. Now the Cupid has gone down. Moswell will transform here up into the Somersault Cloud. That'll save his life for the time being. Crimson a little bit further away from this fight. Pagon continuing to push in the meantime, and that means Sino can now work in, get the kill on Ananster, but Yuji is joined to the fray. Moswell will go down. Ionic under his own tier 1 tower, still being dove here, and the stun is there, but is the damage. It's the dash away, just buying a little bit of time. The root on the end will not connect as Ionic has blinked away. It's a 2-for-1 trade, but Gore, you have to take into consideration the right-hand side tier 2 tower that Pagon was able to take.
I mean, being able to find split pushes. If you have 2 Hunters, use them the way that Hunters are good. They're great at taking objectives. If that's on the map, then that's perfect for you. If it's over in the form of an Oni Fury, that's perfect for you, although they're going to be losing that one as Yuji tanks the last little bit of that. So pressure going towards the side of Winter Dogs. But like you said, kind of lopsided. Ultimately, kind of comes out as a wash. Moswell Stewart going to respawn. Very similar to the last game. I'm looking down. They're 0-4, 0-2. Not necessarily having the cleanest games for themselves. But 20 minutes in, 3,000 gold down, this is feeling pretty familiar territory for Sturdy Artisans. It's about where they were last game, at least at one point. And so if they can continue finding at least a little bit of pressure on the map, whether they're losing a team fight in the process for it, it's going to give them an open avenue. I mean, right now, theoretically, you win one fight, grab Fire Giant, kill Right Phoenix, you win the game if you can get into the Titan fast enough. So there is a room for victory still. In fact, maybe even a more easy path there for Sturdy Artisans, at least into the base, than there is for Winter Dogs, who still have to go through at least one Tier 2. But that lead for Winter Dogs is where that comfort comes from, right? Is their ability to run forward through the Fire Giant pit with no real worries, because they know they kind of have this one in the bag unless something goes drastically wrong.
Right, so much of the loss now has been put on Moswell, 3 levels behind there in the mid lane. 0-4. Pagon uses the beads. Big engage now from Game off to the side. 3-man root, and look at the collapse from the Winter Dogs. Oh my, the damage is there. Pagon will eventually go down. Ionic will follow as well underneath his own Phoenix. This might be a full-on deicide, but can't be. Stewart's on the left-hand side of the map. Split pushing down the Tier 2 tower, but does he have to go back to base here? I think he does. There's 30 or so seconds on everyone's respawn.
Yeah, 30 seconds to wait. Has his ult. But look, one Cupid versus
Can't
the
do this,
world
can he?
isn't
What?
necessarily the end-all be-all to me. I don't know if that was the time to use it. He's going to get chased under base.
That's right, you only get one in the Fields of Love, and now Winter Dogs turn their eyes on towards the Titan. Stewart is going to have to walk out and try to save the game here for his team, but the portal from Crimson will connect, and the Winter Dogs won't fumble the lead this time. The Titan will fall. We're headed on to a Game 3.
I was waiting for the turnaround to happen. I just kind of had, a belief there that maybe was misplaced overall. I guess they did it in Game 1. But Moswell, I mean, was 0-5, like you said, 3 levels down during that last fight. Same thing, Pagon was pretty far behind. Like they lost the experience game hard enough early on that there wasn't a lot to do. It would have required, as you had worded it, a massive fumble at that point to really turn things back around in favor of Sturdy Artisans. But Winter Dogs, well, they held on to it.
All right. What a way to start off SPL debut day here in Season 8. A contested set between the Sturdy Artisans and the Winter Dogs. Quick break, Game 3 right after.
Well, an impressive performance from the Winter Dogs in this one. They take care of Sturdy Artisans in 21 minutes flat. Miff, we were talking before the set about how sometimes in Season 7, Winter Dogs would just turn on the jets and end it quickly. A Season 7-esque performance from them in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the Winter Dogs plan is pretty clear. We're gas pedaling. I think anyone who plays against them should know, if we're able to wait it out a little bit longer, try and slow down the pace, that's really, we're going to have your best shot at winning. But sometimes you cannot stop the train once it gets rolling, and especially when Anister's playing a god like Set, man. This guy was involved early on, and he never really stopped.
No, and it's I'm just gonna throw it out there that the Uller solo experiment probably complete, and I'm not gonna say if it was a success or a failure, but I don't feel the need to run it again. Is the way that I would I think I'd put that one. Tough game for Payon over there in the solo lane. I think the Wukong takeaway by Aquarius ended up being maybe the most impactful pick in Picks and Fans.
Yeah, Aquarius looking so good on that one. But look, I'm not willing to write off Uller solo in its entirety. Hunters in solo have been kind of dominant in the past before. I think that Sun Wukong matchup really would just favor Aquarius there. And the slash line kind of reflects it at 5, 1, and 6. That's wild.
Yeah, impressive from Aquarius, and this one also topped with player damage charts, as alongside Erupt Crimson, the only 2 players above that 10k mark. Crim again looked the lights out on this Giannis, no surprise on that one. So impressive stuff from the Winter Dogs here in game number 2. They force a game number 3, and Sturdy Artisans' undefeated record now on the line.
Yeah, I think if I'm the Sturdy Artisans here, it's time to make some changes in P's and B's. I'm not letting Crimson have that Giannis again. He has looked incredibly consistent on it in these last 2 games. Sure, he doesn't win the first one, but it wasn't his fault. Man was doing a lot for his team, and in game 2, it came through for him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a pick that I'd be looking to take away. Crim has looked too good on that Giannis so far through the first 2 games. Game 3 picks and bans coming at you right now. For the first time in this set, the Sturdy Artisans sitting in the first pick position. They've got their pick of the litter, and sure enough, first ban on the board is that Giannis.
Gotta get rid of that, man. Crimson was looking pretty dominant. Now that they're on their first pick slot, they can be a little bit more free with their bans, if you would, using their first pick essentially as an extended ban if they need to. Apollo is going to round out that second ban for the Artisans. Tiamat and ESET getting removed by the Winter Dogs. They do not want to play against Sino's ESET jungle. It's struck some fear in the hearts of his enemies.
Can you blame him? I mean, it's just so untraditional that I think that it can really cause some problems. I'm not surprised at all. As Sobek ends up being the first pick, it feels like the Sturdy Artisans really prioritize getting Ionic a priority pick. He got Athena top 2 in game 1, Sobek top 2 in game 2, and now first overall Sobek over something like the Tsukiyomi that was still open.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they were willing to let Tsukiyomi go in exchange for this Sobek, but I think it really is because Athena and Sobek are both gods that are pretty impossible to counter, really. I mean, they're going to do what they need to do the majority of the time. Sobek used to have a counter inside of Nemesis, but that god's really been kind of relegated to a more niche pick in Season 8, so I really do like that they're getting Ionic comfortable every single step of the way, and they're not giving away too much, depending on how much you value that Tsukiyomi.
So Wukong open, but instead of going to the Wukong, it looks like the Sturdy Artisans are going with Tyr. We could assume that's going into the solo lane, though, with a team that has Sino on it. You can never be too sure. But good at putting Pagon back on a warrior. Not the Wukong, though, which is worth noting, as Serket comes through now for the Winter Dogs. So now we're looking at either Serket jungle Tsukiyomi solo, or mid, I suppose, or Tsukiyomi jungle and Serket support would be my guess there for Gamma. Fits his playstyle. He loves to play those aggressive assassins and warriors in that support role.
If memory serves for the Winter Dogs, I think the last couple of times we saw them lock in Tsukiyomi, it was going towards the mid. So I'm a little bit hesitant to really decide where that one's going to land. Serket could very easily go into support in my mind as well, could as well go into the jungle. So I'll leave it up to the pros here, Aggro. I'll let you decide where those gods are going to really line up at the end of P's and B's as the Artisans remove Scylla from the play field, as well as Winter Dogs go ahead and target out Wheelish and Shock. Again, keeping in line with we're just going to try and limit what Sino was able to do.
Very smart Willish man right there, because with the Sobek already, but Serket on your side and the Tyr, Heimdall has a knock-up. That all seems pretty good, but this is what I was going to say, man. I'm like, where is the Athena? She's still open. Somehow, after 10 bans, Athena gets through, which seems pretty wild to me, and it keeps the ambiguity of Winter Dogs draft intact. I still don't know where everyone's going to go.
It's hard to say. So I guess I have to ask a question, Aggro. Where do you think
Yeah.
Athena really lands? Because personally, I really prefer her in either jungle or solo. I don't really think she meshes too well in that support role.
I think any team with Athena on it is better off. It doesn't matter where you put her. I think I would put. Man, they're all good. I don't know. I really don't think that there's a huge difference between the three. I think that solo lane, she's looked really, really strong in all the competitive games we've seen. Uzi played her the other day for his team and looked really, really strong. Jungle, I think she's really good. I think probably support is the worst of the three only because you can't build Bumba's hammer. But that's the only reason. Like, that's the only difference to me is that you can't build Bumba's in support, so it's not quite as good for her because her Bumba's hammer interaction is
It's nuts.
crazy. Yeah, it's really good. Persephone also pretty good, it turns out. So with Athena there, we don't know. It could be Athena, Tsukiyomi, Serket, and Athena. Some combination of those three are going to be jungle, support, and solo. And I don't think it's going to be Serket solo. That's all I can say. That's all I got for you. Let's see where they go. Game 3, undefeated record for Sturdy Artisans on the line with the Winter Dogs.
Well, Aggro is wrong. It is indeed Serket solo. Just kidding. It's Aquarius playing the Tsukiyomi solo. It's Gamma support Athena. And Gore, this is something now I thought it was kind of a one-off yesterday, admittedly. Saw Tsukiyomi solo a couple of times. I thought it was a bit of a one-off. But when it happens a few times, it becomes a trend. Maybe Tsukiyomi solo is something we got to just get used to.
Yeah, and again, I think it fills in a similar role to what we were seeing out of Set last year, right? Set would flex over to the solo lane occasionally. I just think Tsukiyomi is a good enough god that you want him on your team. And Assassin specifically, like, it didn't work necessarily easily for Pagon on a Hunter. And I think it's just that Assassins can build a little more bruisery because of the nature of their fighting style, that it's not going to be the end-all be-all for them if they end up sacrificing a little bit of damage just for that survivability. Whereas for a Hunter, you're just not gonna do anything at that point, right? Like you are built to honestly just be a glass cannon in those instances. So Pagon suffering on the Ullr, I don't think is going to have any trouble here for Aquarius on this Tsukiyomi, just because of the nature of the beast and because we've seen it successful before. So I kind of know that yes, it can work, right? It's not necessarily going out on a limb, and I think he's going to have, again, maybe not the best early game going up against something like a tier. But he's not really going to be that stressed out about it. And honestly, his rotations are going to be incredibly solid because he's still going to be technically an assassin. He's still going to have that kind of jungler style when he gets into the middle of the team fights.
Hey, Gord, do you think that the Sturdy Artisans team, or excuse me, this, or I guess really both, but I'm referencing the Winter Dog starter items here. You think the Sturdy Artisans have a lot of lockdown in their composition? Every single person on the Winter Dogs has started with a set of beads here. The looming pressure of early lockdown and often lockdown is absolutely there. And then I kind of fumble because everyone except Ionic has beads over on the Sturdy Artisan side. Everyone is just kind of threatened by all of the CC and the lockdown that exists in this game.
Man, and next to that vision shard too, it is just a lot of like unison. Everything seems to be tied together, some down there. It is the same color all around. And that, like you said, it is showcasing that, yeah, when you have Pagon, you have Cyno, you have Ionic on these gods, I'm gonna want beads. I need it for the Sash. I need it for the Fearless. I need it for the Pluck. Like, you need to have something to get you out of there.
Cyno has to use his beads now, the second set of beads to get used in this game. Pagon ushering his jungler away, eats the stun. Andenstir won't go any further. That was an attempted invade from Cyno, and now Pagon thinks he might have an opening for first blood. Instead, Aquarius now has the damage, and Andenstir's right there. I feel like you had to know, but Pagon might not have known. And Aquarius will snag the first kill of the game. Moswall trading with Crimson in the mid lane. Persephone does crazy damage right off the bat. There's brawling happening on the left side of the map. These two teams going for the throat 2.5 minutes in.
I think at this point, that's kind of what you need, right? Winter Dogs win hard and they win quickly. That's what they need to do here. It's going to be 25 minutes or less for them, or they're going to lose incredibly hard in 25 minutes or less. Like we saw in Game 1, they fumbled that first win, and Sturdy Artisans were able to make a big comeback. I still think that right now, looking at it, Sturdy Artisans are a very deadly composition, but we haven't seen a lot of this hell this year, ever since the healing changes. So I'm interested to see how Moswell does on this pick. Very dominant throughout all of Season 7, but again, so far in Season 8, very quiet, never banned, never picked. And so this is a portion for Moswell not only to have maybe a proving ground for Hell, but I think for all of Sturdy Artisans to kind of go back to comfort. This feels very Season 7 in terms of draft, and not a lot changed for the drafting styles between the seasons. But it definitely has its winning portions and its losing portions.
Uh-oh, Pagon on the return gang from Andenster. Had to use his ultimate. Andenster, not level 5 yet. Might have been a dead Pagon had he reached that mark. Another bit of pressure being exerted on the right-hand side. Pagon had been controlling this lane. Pagon walks forward. It's the taunt right back through, and Aquarius will do a little bit of damage. Pagon, though, maybe you consider that a win. Yeah, you lose a bit of your HP, but for a moment there, tiny bit of gold and XP splitting happening between Aquarius and Andenster, and Pagon staying alive is the first and foremost important thing.
Just keeping him going, right? Keeping Pagon, specifically because he fell so far behind last game. I think just a float is going to be solid. Again, not necessarily his natural role, as what we've seen from him in mid has been spectacular, but had a really good
stick
game
him on
one.
Uller solo? I mean,
yeah, that one was definitely not comfortable, is the way I would describe it. His game 1 was really good. I expect here on tier he's going to have a really good game 3, right? It's just, that was a really weird choice for game 2, and I don't know that it would have been different for them if he was a warrior. I think they probably would have had a little easier time in some of those fights, but I don't know if it changes the overall outcome. Whereas this time, this draft just feels a little bit better all around for Sturdy Artisans. I don't know, maybe it's the Nemesis from last game. I don't know what it is. That something just didn't feel like it was going to make a big difference. They didn't have like a true one-person carry all. It felt like a lot of setup for everybody else to do the work, but nobody really was the god to do the work. Whereas here, you can spread it out. Pagon will get kills. I think Sino will get kills. Stewart will get kills. It's going to be all around good for this team. They do still need to maintain, not necessarily a lead, but just kind of an equality in this game, as opposed to the last couple where they've fallen behind. By 10 minutes, they've been about 2,000 gold behind every time. So we'll see if they can break that path here.
We're halfway to 10, and nobody really has the lead yet in this game. So for both teams, probably feeling somewhat comfortable with the way that this early game has gone. Everyone at least level 5 now in this game, so we're going to start to see a little more brawling with those ultimates. Sino's going to get taunted in by Gamma here. No real commit from Andenster, but this is a 3 versus 2 fight for the time being. Ionic is making his way over from duo, so that'll make it a 3 versus 3. No one committing the full-on ultimate just yet, but look at the plug damage that Crimson has done to Sino. There is some sustain there on the Naja. Keep him up and active. Pagon ganked again. Beads used. Gamma shy on mana. No taunt there, but now Andenser's going to make it a 3 versus 1. Pagon just trying to do some damage, but no chance you survive. Andenser rotates over and picks up the second kill of the game for the Winter Dogs and the second death of the game for Pagon.
Now, that's not one of those moments that I specifically hate what Pagon does, but it is this really specific instance. Leaving the tower with the Fearless ensures your death, whereas if you can get someone under the tower with the Fearless, not only do you maybe get the kill, at least you're under your tower, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're probably still dead there. There's 3 people, you're low health, but I think that Fearless was kind of a death sentence in and of itself to get some return damage. I wouldn't mind seeing that turn around, but again, it's not necessarily the end-all be-all, and I don't think it makes a huge enough difference that it's something to be super worried about. This purple buff has been such a big deal to Sturdy Artisans. They have been over here trying to steal it. And whether it's them or Winter Dogs, people are trying to get rid of it from the other side. It looks like Artisans are going to be able to get this one. They were 2 Vision Shard wards dropped down, plus the Vision that comes down from Heimdall. And yet, I'm not sure that they were able to get that one. No one picks it up on their side at least. So even if they were able to confirm it, it's not like it makes a big difference for them.
Sure, Pagon sticking around his tower this time has done a big chunk of damage on over to Andenster. Piercing Moonlight won't bring Aquarius back into the fight. So Pagon sticks to his guns, loses his tower, but doesn't die off this time. Actually nearly got a kill onto Andenster. Now Ionic has maybe found the kill or an objective for his team to go towards, but Gamma, half HP, still pretty tanky with the half that remains. Aquarius might be able to finalize the kill here. Pagon has stuck around the ranged attack, misses, but Pagon has walked back forward into the minion wave, and Aquarius will end up getting the kill. yet again. So now 0-3 for Pagon on this tier out of the solo lane. Does that maybe set up a kill now? Sino connects onto the stun. Ultimate waiting. Windfire wheels. That will get used onto Aquarius. Ionic is here once they land. If assistance is needed, and Ionic is going to be the one to pick up the kill. Necessary because Gamma had ulted in as well. And Gamma will walk away. Ends up being a 1-for-1 trade. Both solo laners down.
And I was going to compliment Pagon because I think, like, it's almost like a Matrix moment, right? Neo dodging the bullets that come through as that piercing moonlight whizzes by his head when he jumps over the buff. But it seems solid. Like, cool, you got yourself out, you burn a couple of ults. And I still admire the fact that they got 1 kill, maybe 2 here as they go engage on Gamma. Even with that taunt, I don't know if that's enough to get him out of there.
It is a double taunt. Pagon back from base, looking for more. Unsatiated by the 3 deaths that he has already, was potentially attempting to walk in one more time, but both teams finally accepting that this brawl on the right-hand side is over. First tower of the game goes down, and it's Aquarius getting one over onto Pagon. I mean, there are these individual moments, Gore, right, where we can say, well, maybe if Pagon did this, maybe if Pagon did that, he doesn't die, whatever that may be, and I think there is a discussion to be had there. But ultimately, there's just been so much pressure. It hasn't been blanket 1v1s, it feels like, the entire time, right? I mean, Annenster's been there, Gamma's been ulting in. There's just been way too much poured into that solo lane for Pagon to, I don't know, maybe not even attempt to turn something around.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and honestly, I'd say it's favorable, right? You're 0-3 now, like, what's another death at this point, right? Like, you don't have much else that you can lose, and meanwhile, killing someone like Stewart, well, that's going to have some weight to it. He hadn't died once yet. So those are the things I look for in moments like this, where if I'm Pagon, kind of like you said, like, unsatiated, like, he doesn't care at this point. Like, I'm going to continue fighting because what's the worst case scenario? Oh, I'm 0-4 now? Like, if all of your kills are on him, then his worst case scenario has kind of already been realized. Instead, he can play Protector for Sino, Moswell, and Stewart without caring too much about where his health bar goes in the process. Plus, at the end of the day, you have a Hell, and eventually that is going to come into play. Out-of-combat healing might be nerfed a little harder. The in-combat healing from that Hell is still going to be very helpful. Plus, what Tyr already has to kind of self-sustain him, well, self-sustain, it's going to be very helpful in terms of keeping Pagon alive through this mid to late game. I think they've kind of hit the portion where you bullied him for all you could in that very beginning. Now all you can do is things like that, right? Strip away his towers, strip away his buff, but you can't really put him down any further in terms of kills. He's got that shifter shield. I think he's tanky enough and survivable enough now that he's not too stressed.
Right, he has no more lunch money to give you, Aquarius and Annenster. Give him a break here. He needs to go back and regroup just a little bit longer. Ultimately, the ability to disrupt will still be there. He's 2 levels behind, but if this tier is able to get into a position to send some back with the Fearless, the Bluestone Shifter Shield will do plenty of damage, so have no fear. But there is a deficit, and Aquarius is absolutely going to be doing some serious damage with the same exact build that Pagon has gone for, just with a couple extra levels and an extra relic or 2 when he goes back to base eventually. Been quiet on the left-hand side, though, Gore. We had seen some flashes early on in this game. All that's resulted in, though, no kills, but Stewart, yet again, a 2-level lead over Yuji. We've seen this a couple of times. Now this Heimdall, starting at least in the early game, not running away with anything just yet, but feeling comfortable being alone with Yuji in that lane with a couple extra levels.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting to see what Stewart can do as time goes on, right? I really like Heimdall's late game pretty much more than anything. I think Yuji is going to be able to ult into pretty much any fight. Hey, double that for Gamma, right? Like, they have 2 people that can be literally anywhere on the map and then blink and they're on the other side. So you have to be a little worried about the capabilities, I think, from Winter Dogs and their ability to group up. And I honestly would say, like, kind of like a flash mob, like they can just do that, but a flash team fight. Like, they can just show up and all of a sudden everybody's around there and you have to be a little more scared of what their team fight potential is going to be. But right now you're still focused on Gold Fury, right? Gorp got taken down, so you're not too worried about where the Scorpion is going to go and those enhanced buffs. But you are focused on this big objective. If you're Sturdy Artisans, that's the step into a lead. If you're Winter Dogs, that's a step into a further lead. So either way, that's the next big target that I'd have pretty much painted for either side here.
All right, so we are sticking with Gorp and Forp, I suppose, because here's the thing. You and I have now said it so many times, it's what's happening now, right? I mean, at least when you and I are casting, I guess that's something that people need to be on the lookout for. Gorp goes down, which means Gold Fury can spring forth, and Sturdy Artisans are going to take that one away. And Gore, I think that's a pretty tangible way of looking at maybe the comfort that the Sturdy Artisans team has on the left-hand side of the map. I don't know if you go for that if you're looking at an objective on the right-hand side with the way Aquarius has this slight lead over Paycon, but with the way the map pressure's been pushing in here on the left, why not go for something like that? Look at this 4-man grouping that's happening on the left, but it's soon to be 5 as the solo laners make their way through mid, crashing through. That's going to be a pluck in from Ionic. Up into the sky as Sino will grab one with his ultimate. Yuji joins the fight with the ultimate of his own on the backside. Piercing Moonlight gets used here. Aquarius weaves through, does big damage, and Maswal is going to be the first one to go down in this fight. We'll have to see in just a second, I assume, Gormizer, how the rest of this ends up playing on through. We'll take a quick break before we jump back into the rest of the fight. But this is going to be the first big kind of fireworky moment that we're going to see here in this game. And as it stands in this specific moment, the Winter Dogs have found the first kill onto Maswal, so the Hell didn't really get to participate in fight number 1.
Look, I can't think of a better target to get off the board immediately than Hell, right? Like, she does a good amount of damage. The healing that you are now not having to worry about is going to be helpful. I didn't check the items right beforehand, but like if you don't have things like the pestilence, the helpful. If you don't have like pestilence, you don't have contagion, you don't have like brawlers, divine. If you don't have a cursed ankh, like all of the anti-heal items you can think of, a toxic blade, depending on 2 assassins in this game, you have to imagine somebody over there might pick one up. They have so many options to deal with the healing, but the best one, no matter what, blanket is always going to be, is the healer dead? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you're set, man. You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the fight. The healing's going to be gone. You still have to worry about like what Tier's going to be able to bring into this, and I think the CC factor that you have even without Hell in between like things like the Naja, the Tier, and the Sobek are going to be deadly. But they're not going to be healing up anywhere near as well as they would otherwise, which means that all of your damage is permanent, and you're going to feel pretty confident about that.
Right. And Gore, one thing we haven't really gotten to touch on all that much with this Winter Dogs draft just yet, because we've been, granted, focused on the tier and some of the interesting picks that we've seen kind of flow through, really this double global pressure from Gamma and Big Yuji as we will rejoin the fray of the game and then, I guess, unrejoin the fray of the game, and then rejoin right back in as Annenster completes this kill onto Maswal, but it's an immediate disengage from the rest of the 2 teams, except Pagon now has a 1v1 against Crimson in the mid lane, and finally Pagon is able to get something going for himself, and now the tier is on the board. It's a 1-for-1 trade after all that.
Man, I just got some massive deja vu. I can't count the amount of times I think I've seen a tier like go 0-3 early on just to turn it around and be the most important member of the game as the fight continues on. You might lose Ionic here. I think losing that plus Maswal definitely makes things less worthwhile all around there for Sturdy Artisans, but the fact that they're willing to fight and the fact that they have that small gold lead thanks to that Gold Fury means that it's not the end-all be-all, right? Like, it is an unfortunate loss there going 2-for-1. But I think Persephone is someone that you need to control. I honestly kind of glanced over the fact that she existed in the game until I see that Grasp of Death, that ult come through, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to be difficult. Like, that's a factor that you have to deal with at a different level.
Right, and beads burning with what we've talked about, 9 sets of beads as we load into the game. I mean, it's at an all-time high, the importance of getting those beads off the priority members, whether that's with the Grasp of Death, whether that's a tauntaun in from Gamma, whatever it may be. The more of those that are down before these big team fights, that's really where this game starts to live and die, I think. I mean, it's kind of a non-statement. Obviously, if beads are down, then you can CC someone easier. But with so many that exist in this specific game, it's ever so important. But kind of going back to the point I was bringing up, the global pressure from Gamma and Yuji, I think, is also playing a pretty big role here for the Winter Dogs. I mean, all of the fighting kind of has to happen in one area if you're the Sturdy Artisans. The Winter Dogs have the ability to kind of rejoin the fray very quickly with 2 separate god picks between the Athena and this Chernobog. And I imagine that's something that starts to play a role if we start to see contested fights as the game goes on.
Yeah, and again, I think the way I had kind of hinted at that was calling it like a flash team fight, right? Where it's just all of a sudden they've got 5 people there. I think what we saw out of Ionic last game on this Athena, where you are making sure that you're using these ults properly. That was game number 1, where you're using those ults properly and really making sure that people aren't going to die and making sure those mitigations, like, again, something that feels very small and most, like, historical games of Smite, Defender of Olympus is the game that you could ignore or the ult you can ignore the most in the game. But I think if you use them properly, it is one of the best ones you can have, not only being able to save lives the way we saw Yannick doing it, but like you had said, literally just traversing the map. We see Athena all over the place because of it. And Gamma has been on point. If you get in position, using your ult, then can use a taunt with the follow-up. Your dash has a slow on it as well, so there's so much utility hidden in Athena's kit that really engages you in the middle of a team fight to just pick somebody off. Whether you get 3 people with your taunt or not, you're going to be able to kill someone in the middle of it all, and that's what makes her so powerful.
Sino wants to kill Andinster here. Windfire Wheels connect onto the Winter Dogs jungler, and Gamma will ult on in. There's your traversing of the map, and it's a double taunt, and Gamma will dash away at the end of it as well. But Sturdy Artisan sent Pagon right around the backside. Andy will make his way out of the fight and survive, but you can't say the same for Gamma. It's the sacrificial lamb in the support, and unfortunately, Goremizer, the beautiful plant on top of the tower, will go down here on the left-hand side as well.
Yeah, that's the one, first off, the discovery from yesterday, that the Chaos side plants that I did not realize. Look, how many times are you walking down the lane and looking at the top of your towers? Because if the answer is more than 0, then you're lying to me, and I firmly believe that you are making it up. But I do think that at least seeing this pressure, going back to the actual game we're in and burning down this left-hand side, it's a good start for Sturdy Artisans. I mean, that's like the first time that I've really felt them kind of take command of a team fight since game 1, right? In game 2, they didn't get to show up. Game 1, they got, admittedly, I would say kind of lucky. They played it well around that Fire Giant to make sure things smoothed out for them. But now I'm looking at this one, and you see this tier 1 going down. It looks like they're going to be able to get into this tier 2 pretty easily. I don't think they're too worried about it. The follow-up from this fight should be solid on their end.
Sturdy Artisans keep going here. Pagon does not die, but Sino does. Aquarius with the double, the perfect targets on the piercing moonlight, but Stewart has been left alone. A double kill for Stewart now as well. It's a 2-for-2 trade, or a 3-for-2 maybe at the end of it after the Winter Dogs turn around a couple of those kills. Sturdy Artisan score just a bit overextended, a little overzealous going for the tier 2 tower dive.
I mean, you get over there, I think they go a little further. There's maybe a chance they take the tier 2 if they aren't looking for the fight on the other side of it. But you also have to account for just Aquarius playing that incredibly well, right? 5-1-3 right now for Aquarius as the Tsukiyomi solo. But that ult just happens to hit the best targets that it possibly could to get him onto Pagon there in the back line. And making sure that that little bit of damage puts him down. You get a tier 1 tower, you got this Gold Fury if you're Sturdy Artisans, and you are not any amount of gold ahead, right? And looking at the levels, you're down in for most of them. You've got a 3-level lead there for the duo lane, but a 2-level deficit there in both the solo and the jungle. Everybody else is maybe a smidge ahead or even at best. And so Stewart is kind of becoming the guy right now for me, the one that you have to rely on and are hoping to see a lot more of. I think Pagon's been doing a lot in these fights, but considering he's got a level deficit to what Andinster is, that means that it's going to be a little easier for Andy and Aquarius to just kind of double team and take down this tier without having to worry too much about whether or not he can fight back heavily, especially like you had highlighted with all these beads. I mean, there's still 4 pairs of beads up on the side of Winter Dogs. They're not stressed about their capabilities to get out of any engagement, especially from someone like Pagon.
Gore, I'm glad we were able to take a quick, deep breath. I wonder if we're going to be gasping for air in a moment, if we're going to see another fight start to brawl out around this Oni Fury. Andinster backside, Gamma, double taunt in, damage pouring through the Sturdy Artisans lineup, but the Sturdy Artisans have taken down the Fury that the other team had started up. Now up into the sky goes Yuji trying to join in onto the fight, and what a combo there with Sino up in the air anyway. A perfect spot for Yuji to land down. You're not under immediate danger, but now Yannick has turned around, gotten the pluck onto Yuji. You're in danger now, and Andinster will try to weave away as Pagon looking towards the 4 surviving members of the Winter Dogs. It's the up-down from the ultimate, and that's all that this one has for it. Sturdy Artisans are going to work their way towards this tier 1 tower.
Yeah, there's not a lot of ways to paint that one other than Yuji went in way too deep and nobody wanted to support him. There is nothing else about that. He just went in admittedly to help Andy, but then Andy gets out because he has a leap. You're Chernobog, and you are stuck looking at 5 members of Sturdy Artisans. Not an easy fight to get on out of there. And again, a crucial kill. Look at how much they're getting off the back of that fight. They get the tier 1. This should be the tier 2, especially with Stewart's level as they get through it. Maybe not enough to swing a Fire Giant. Hadn't even spawned yet over there. Forp is still standing formidably in the middle of the Fire Giant pit. But they are in a position now where their gold lead is starting to mean something. The experience lead is starting to mean something for them. And they can start taking control of the game back from Winter Dogs.
Wow, Crimson just cannot play. Pagon is anywhere close by. Gamma taunted in 1. But now maybe he's the one that's in a little bit of danger. Push back from Andon. Stur is not going to be able to save his support, so Gamma ends up going down. Is that the key that the Sturdy Artisans have been looking for? Slightly low in the man department are Sino and Moswell. Not looking towards, well, I would say Fire Giant, but looks like Forp is still up and standing. So you're going to have to deal with that one before you even consider an FG at this point. But instead it's the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side starting to get looked at here by the Sturdy Artisans. You don't have a big engage tool in Gamma, who's back and respawning in the next 10 seconds. I think this is the right call, Gore. You just got to back away.
You get the tier 2, you have, like you said, no real chance to defend it. If you try, you will just end up staggering yourselves out, and that's just not going to be good for the team fight business, right? You're going to end up having to walk in and watch a Fire Giant potentially get taken while you're still respawning. Your team would have respawned at that point. But now you get these. Again, I think the biggest buff on this side of the map when you get that Scorpion to pick up that enhancement for this case is going to be blue buff, because it gives a very big jump in your CDR that's going to be able to come through. And looking at someone like Pagon, who doesn't have any, or in this case Hell, who might need some as well, that's more heals that are available, or more fearlesses that are available, depending on who picks that up. So I really like their capabilities of picking that up. It's all depending on these little skirmishes, though. This is where Winter Dogs kind of won in the first game, was, you know, the 2v2s, the 3v3s, but the team fights fell apart. It looks like Gamma's going to be forced to ult away.
Gamma does ult away, and Gamma survives, but TKO. Gamma cannot participate in the rest of this fight. Big Yuji cannot either. Can say the same for Crimson. It's effectively a 3-kill swing, except Gamma just has to go back to base. That's something we haven't talked about all that much, Gore. The cleanse from this hell. You're grouped up. You ult a big kind of smattering of people around this hell. You're just going to walk right on out. It didn't really matter much. It was just a delay there from Crimson. But it does show that Moswell has that extra utility there as well. And now it's the Fire Giant being looked at, and I don't think the Winter Dogs have much to say about it.
I mean, no, nobody's going to be able to get in here. I was like, they might be able to send one person over, but there's just no chance. They're not going to be fast enough to get over here in time, and even if they did, you might just be, not might just be, you would be throwing away your life. There wouldn't be anything to exist afterward. Sino almost not existing there afterward. That Fire Giant doing a little bit of damage to him. This is a largely pivotal moment. The towers are already gone, Dave. This Fire Giant, all it's going to do for the power play is ensure that a Phoenix will fall. It's one tier 2 that's left standing on the side of Winter Dogs over there in left. Might be their target. Gets even more gold to line their pockets. But I'm looking at the Phoenixes right afterward with Sino, Pagon, Ionic to really kind of play bodyguard for your carries, for your healer, and for Stewart, as well as to really stop anything from Winter Dogs coming to fruition if they try to engage. The CC from those 3 that I just named is going to make this even easier, I think, for Sturdy Artisans, especially with all 5 members nice and healthy, the waves more or less on their side at this point. They might even go for this Gold Fury just for the sake of having it before they get up there, because they're not in a fully aggressive position. Like, this is the awkward moment when the wave isn't right where you want it to be. You have to spend that first, like, minute and a half of the Fire Giant setting up the success that the latter half will bring.
Well, Gore, you know, Moswell, you talk about bodyguarding your healer. Moswell, obviously a little concerned about CC. Spirit Robe and Winged Blade, one of 3 Winged Blades that the Sturdy Artisans have built this game. Obviously a little concerned about CC and slows coming out from the Winter Dogs here. If I can heal, if I can cleanse, Verada Tahuti provide maybe a little bit of the extra damage that I need, I suppose, is the mindset that Moswell is going for here. And look at the back off that the Winter Dogs have had to go for here. The regular old Fire Giant, left side Phoenix exposed, mid, right, you can say the same for them. They can't really step forward into this, but Gamma wants to. Immediate cleanse from Moswell. It's a nice double taunt, but it doesn't matter as the hell has done her job. Now Aquarius in, but right back out of the fight. Gamma uses his ultimate, but only shifts him slightly to the left. The mid lane Phoenix has gone down in the meantime. This is a separated fight with Aquarius all on his own. Sino has caught out the solo laner with his ultimate. Gamma attempting to taunt back through, but the beads get used, and the Sturdy Artisans survive. Winter Dog score, they're going to have to fight under their Titan.
And remember, this is where hell is going to shine. Not only is the Phoenix already gone, but you're in combat. This is when the healing's going to be able to do its best. Yes, there's a Divine Ruin on the other side. The Cursed Ankh was used, but it doesn't seem to be enough to slow him down. Ionic still over half health. Same thing for Pagon. They're going to be able to get back in here. And again, this is where that CC comes in handy.
What a turnaround Pagon has had in this game that started off so brutal. Now the tier has been controlling the front lines, down in the trenches, into the Titan room. The Sturdy Artisans will go, attempting to end this set. Yuji goes up, down with the ultimate. And it looks like this is all the Sturdy Artisans are looking for. They're going to start to make their way back towards mid, maybe looking towards the right side. Phoenix, they haven't needed minions yet. Why start now? Gamma, he's on his own. He's taunted in one, but it won't find anything just yet.
It's that awkward moment. You know you can't fight. Even 5v4, although only for 4 more seconds till Aquarius respawns. Under the Titan, it's too dangerous. You don't want to get in there because it could be the moment that Winter Dogs win the one-team fight that would win them the game, right? I think if you win a fight under Titan as Winter Dogs, you could feasibly run straight down mid. I don't know. There's 4 towers standing. I don't know. Winter Dogs have a little more work maybe cut out ahead of them to try and turn this one around and ensure themselves a victory. Because on the other side, like you said, for Sturdy Artisans, look how easy this is. Look, we took two Phoenixes. We got 2 waves of fire minions pouring down the lanes. We're pretty solid there. Got a Gold Fury, so now we're to over 10,000 gold ahead. We're going to lose this Fire Giant within the next minute, maybe a little less. As we prepare for the next one, we need to be as far ahead and ensure of a victory as we can be. And if that means that we aren't going for the Titan just yet, it just means it's going to take about, let's say, 3-4 minutes longer of a game to get towards the end. The same result, but a lot safer.
Oh, it's a literal perfect setup for the next FG. You got the furthest Phoenix down, and then obviously the mid lane is going to provide some extra pressure away from the large objective, and that looks like exactly what the Sturdy Artisans are looking towards. And Gormizer, you know, with the changes in this year and the starter items, the big boost can still come. There's still room to grow once you hit level 20. Sometimes you see near completed builds pre-level 20, but now you get those starter item upgrades. That's something that only a couple members of the Winter Dogs can afford to buy right now. Well, they've at least reached the XP threshold, but might not even have the gold for it. So we're still in an area where there's still so much catching up to do for the Winter Dogs. I'm not sure you can even step out and try to contest this Fire Giant.
You know, I was actually starting to think of all of those upgrades, and I was going to name them like, oh, well, I think this one's very crucial. And then I realized in my head I was just naming all 5 of them. I was just like, well, I think this one's going to be important. Well, also this one, like the Bluestone upgrade's great, but so is Bumba's Hammer. So is the pickup here from Moswell and Ionic and Stewart. For every single one of them, it's enough of a spike. Again, similar to getting that Tier 3 item online, but it's going to be just enough to give them, like you said, that edge over what Winter Dogs have. Essentially, looking, depending on where you glance at it, almost 2 levels ahead of anybody that Winter Dogs has. So you have a very easy time to get a Fire Giant, an easy time to get some pressure. Mid Phoenix is about to respawn. If they want to get a fresh one, right Phoenix seems to be their initial target right now. Press up where the wave is, but they've got so much control on this, you know, from mid to right side of the map, that this should be a pretty easy knockdown for the Phoenix. Winter Dogs have a lot of work to win this fight, and it all comes down to beads timing. They have all of their relics up.
Wow.
I think they can time this properly, but they need to get rid of Moswell.
Score 1 flurry of abilities is all it takes to get Crimson out of the fight. Look at the Persephone back in the fountain. It's a 4 versus 5 underside the right-hand Phoenix here. Half HP left on the Phoenix. Sino leading the charge. Andenster way too low. Crimson say the same for him. Mid lane Phoenix is respawned. It'll go down under the eye of the fire minions here shortly if the Sturdy Artisans don't help it along. Left side Phoenix will spring forth in just a moment. It looks like Sturdy Artisans Gore checking all the boxes before going to the end.
I like this, though. Again, you're trying to pull Winter Dogs out of the base. They're safe under that Titan. Even though that Titan's weak right now, you have to be a little more cautious because it groups you up. A good taunt from Gamma could change it all, but he only got Stewart with that.
Stewart used both of his actives, piercing Moonlight through. Moswell 1, Sino 1. Crimson finally gets the kill onto the Heimdall, but Aquarius gets plucked right back through. Look at this. Sino still rolling through the rest of this fight. Pagon's alive as well. Aquarius limping away, and it's going to all be down to Gamma, and Gamma won't have the legs. Winter Dogs, they fall down, and Sturdy Artisans in 29 minutes will take the set.